No. Get out of the way. Amidst the chaos, an urgent voice pulled Lynch back into his body. He suddenly opened his eyes. Where am I? Lynch rubbed his throbbing head, confused. Wasn't I watching Avengers 4? Why am I here? Is this some kind of prank? Am I dreaming? Questions raced through his mind, but the sounds of explosions and cries for help snapped him back to reality. The situation didn't look good. Am I on a road? Is there a terrorist attack or a natural disaster? Before he could figure it out, two things zoomed toward him. A car was speeding out of control, and from the screams inside, it was clear they couldn't stop it. But what shocked Lynch even more was the golden-red Iron Man being dragged underneath the car. Iron Man? Lynch gasped. The Iron Man looked just like the one from the Marvel movies, possibly the early Mark III. Time travel. Just from watching a movie. Lynch's thoughts short-circuited for a moment, and then panic set in. He realized the out-of-control car was barreling toward him at nearly 180 kilometers per hour, just 10 meters away. In a crisis, the mind often works faster than the body. Lynch dodged to the side, mentally preparing for the worst. Is this how a traveler dies? Wait. If I've time-traveled, maybe a system is coming too. System. Goldfinger. Grandpa. Ding. The Superman system is loaded. The Baby Superman template is now active. Please click to view. Superman system. Am I invincible now? While he pondered this, the car raced past him. Inside, the passengers had closed their eyes, bracing for impact. Iron Man cursed beneath the car, and even a giant silver-gray Iron Man in the distance paused to watch, expecting a tragedy. Everyone thought this young man was doomed. But Lynch suppressed the urge to flee. With the system prompt, he quickly devised a plan. Taking a deep breath, everything around him seemed to slow down. He leaned forward, spread his legs, and squatted slightly. Suddenly, there was a loud screech. To everyone's shock, the car slowed and finally stopped after hitting Lynch. He was now holding the front of the car, which was emitting green smoke, with deep brake marks under his feet. The chaotic scene fell silent. Everyone stared at Lynch in disbelief. Although the Iron Man battle felt like a sci-fi movie, this was something else. With his bare hands, Lynch had stopped a car traveling nearly 100 kilometers per hour. My God, is this boy here to save us? A tall blonde woman whispered. Tony Stark, trapped under the car, opened his eyes, confused. He had seen the young man lying on the road but failed to stop the car. Jarvis, what just happened? He asked, hoping for an explanation. He took the impact of the vehicle with both hands and brought it to a stop, Jarvis replied. WTF? Tony fell silent, guilt washing over him. He had tried to save the young man but failed, and now he felt responsible for another life lost due to his actions. Damn, Mark III has too many flaws. But to his surprise, the young man was unharmed and seemed fine. What kind of monster is this? A bionic robot? A superhuman? Tony's curiosity grew. Jarvis, find out who he is. Query complete. No information found. No info. Tony frowned. Can Captain America do what he just did? Simulation results indicate yes. After pondering, Tony gave up and crawled out from under the car, glancing at the giant silver-gray Iron Man. He hoped this guy wasn't another problem. In the distance, Obadiah, Tony's enemy, saw Lynch unharmed and fumed. Where did this freak come from? He wanted to see Tony fail to save someone. Obadiah envied Tony's talent and despised his reckless behavior. Why can't I have that talent? Why does he always get everything? As he seated, he saw Lynch's impressive display and was momentarily stunned. What's up with this guy? But he quickly sneered. Even if he's a monster, he's just flesh and blood. How can he compare to my steel suit? Obadiah grinned, controlling his Iron King to march toward Lynch. Meanwhile, Lynch felt a surge of power within him. He released the smoking front of the car, closed his eyes, and focused on the incredible strength he now possessed. It felt like he could leap into the sky and smash continents. But he knew this was just an illusion. Lynch remembered the infancy of his Superman template. System. A light screen appeared. Superman system. Current template, 100% Superman in childhood, 0% Superman in youth. Justice value, 8. Lynch quickly understood the system. His initial template was Infant Superman. He had super strength, speed, and intelligence but lacked flight, heat vision, or freezing breath. He could exchange his justice value for more powerful templates later. But right now, he was frustrated. I was so close. I almost became the shame of time travelers. With determination, Lynch headed toward Iron King. This scene reminded him of Iron Man vs. Iron King in the first movie. System, will I get justice if I defeat this guy? You will. As he passed Iron Man, Lynch glanced but quickly accelerated toward the massive Iron King. Iron King, right? My surname isn't Lin if I don't smash you today. 3 to 5 meters apart, Lynch and Obadiah exchanged fierce glares. Drink. Lynch sprinted, faster and faster, then leaped high, fists raised. Give me death. To the onlookers, it seemed impossible for a human to challenge such a giant. But in the next moment, everyone witnessed an incredible sight. Lynch slammed his fist into Iron King, who couldn't react in time. A massive roar echoed as Iron King was knocked back, as if hit by a speeding train. The crowd fell silent, then erupted in cheers. Iron Man, shocked, couldn't even speak. After landing, Lynch shook his hands, feeling an overwhelming sense of understanding. From today onward, he knew he would never be the same. Landing from the sky, Lynch felt an indescribable relief. With just this punch, he released all the negative emotions from his bizarre time travel, gaining the system, and surviving near death. After that punch, he fully understood his strength. Even as a baby Superman, this power was still impressive. Sure, he couldn't use Superman's iconic abilities, only enhanced strength, speed, intelligence, and senses, but he was still Superman. Being a child version of Superman and taking on Iron Overlord was no small feat. Onlookers who had been fleeing stopped to watch, excitement in the air. Many pulled out their phones to capture this rare moment. Hey man, take him down. We're rooting for you, shouted a businesswoman, not caring about her appearance. Lynch, with his enhanced hearing, smirked and pretended not to laugh. Come on. If you beat that guy, I'll buy you a drink, another woman called out. Lynch resisted looking back, stealing a glance. Wow, she's bold. I love you, my boy. Lynch's expression froze slightly. It was a muscular black man with a philosophical vibe. Hey. Be careful. A familiar voice called out. It was Iron Man. He was shocked but knew how to stay calm. He realized that while Lynch's punch looked impressive, Iron Overlord had thick skin and wouldn't be taken out so easily. Just then, Jarvis warned him about incoming shells. Lynch turned to see a cannonball flying toward him from behind the wall. How to deal with it? His instinct was to run, but he quickly changed his mind. If he dodged, the shell might hit innocent bystanders. Plus, why hide? This powerful body told him he couldn't be hurt. Today, he, Lynch, was no ordinary human. Lynch clenched his fist and instead of retreating, he punched. Boom! The shockwave rolled through the air, and onlookers couldn't believe their eyes. No. What just happened? Someone cried, holding their head in disbelief. Is he protecting us? Asked another with tears in their eyes. He'll be fine, others said, watching the dust settle. Despite Lynch's earlier performance, common sense told them he wouldn't survive being hit by a cannonball. Jarvis, what's going on? Tony asked as he rushed toward Lynch. He knew a human hit by a cannonball wouldn't fare well. But he had a feeling this guy might be okay. Gentlemen. Okay, don't tell me. I've seen it myself. Tony wore a look of disbelief. Are you okay? Not bad. Tony Stark, we'll talk later. Get rid of this guy first. Lynch waved his hands to clear the smoke, feeling his mood darken again. Damn, that guy actually shot at me. It was one thing if it was a hot woman, but an old, greasy man. The shot didn't hurt him much, but his clothes and hair were a mess. Lynch stood in rags, his hair disheveled, looking like he just came from battle. This wasn't just hurtful, it was humiliating. Iron Overlord, right? Lynch clenched his fists and charged, landing in front of him like a demon. Obadiah's face turned red inside the Iron Overlord. His control system was glitching, and he was furious at Lynch's defiance. Damn yellow-skinned monkey, I'll kill you. He stomped down on Lynch, but it felt like stepping on a rock. Increase the power. Maximum. He yelled, but the Iron Overlord couldn't move. Lynch pushed back effortlessly, looking coldly at Obadiah. You're the Iron Overlord, right? With a grunt, he pushed the Iron Overlord back. Then, he jumped up and stomped down on the foot that had tried to crush him. The Iron Overlord trembled, machinery whining. Blow me up, right? Lynch punched the shoulder, causing sparks to fly. Step on me, huh? He kicked again, immobilizing the Iron Overlord's leg. A yellow-skinned monkey, huh? Lynch punched the Iron Overlord's head, smashing half of it in. Kill me, right? He stomped on the chest, and the entire Iron Overlord shook. No! Obadiah cried, desperate. He tried to grab Lynch with his arms. Lynch didn't panic. Instead, he grabbed the massive mechanical arms. I've got you. I'm going to tear you apart. Obadiah twisted his face, cranking up the power. No, I've got you. Lynch sneered, using all his strength to throw the Iron Overlord like a spinning top. Inside, Obadiah felt defeated and dizzy. As Lynch approached, fear gripped him. This person, he was a devil. I can't handle him. Run. I have to live. One day, I'll come back and kill you all. Obadiah glared at Lynch, controlling the Iron Overlord to take off. The Iron Overlord stood, barely transforming, and shot flames, lifting off quickly. He can't fly. Lynch didn't pursue, feeling a rush of relief. Just wait for me, one day. Lynch hesitated, watching the Iron Overlord escape. With distance and speed, he could take him down. But how would he get away after? If he killed him here, he'd face the police. Let him fly and find a secluded place to finish him off. He turned to Iron Man, who had been watching the whole time. Hey Tony, are you just watching? Lynch smiled mockingly. Oh, sorry, my energy isn't enough for combat. Tony apologized, but was thinking, where did this guy come from? He confirmed this guy had no military ties and wondered about his intentions. Lynch glanced at Tony's Mark III. Okay, you should do something now, or that guy will get away. Lynch pointed to the Iron Overlord in the air. Take me after him. Okay, hold my shoulders tightly. Tony agreed, realizing Obadiah was a threat. Lynch nodded, stepping forward to grab Mark III's head. Flames burst from the suit as they took off, chasing the Iron Overlord amid the crowd's amazement. High in the sky, two figures quickly shuttled in the sky above the city, one after the other, heading for the ocean. Tony, the speed is a bit slow, are you flying at full speed? Lynch estimated the speed in his mind, and asked with a frown. In fact, I didn't use the enhanced super brain much. The Iron Tyrant in front was almost paralyzed by himself and went on strike. At this time, it is considered to be of excellent quality to be able to barely fly, and it is uncertain how long it can fly. At this speed, maybe he can't catch up with his own 11th road. And Tony's Mark III is in a much better state at the moment, even if he still has one person with him. But at the speed of the Mark, no matter how many minutes have passed, it is impossible to catch up, right? Tony, are you still paddling here? This is your exclusive boss. I help you deal so much damage, and you still have to delay for a while, what is your intention? Please, the Mark, is damaged in many places, and it is carrying a person. This speed is already very good. Tony's helpless voice sounded. Good guy, it's still damaged, you think I haven't seen Iron Man? Your steel suit can still be used after being dried into parts, not to mention just damaging some parts. Something is wrong, Tony Stark, something is wrong with you. You have bad intentions. Lin Chi narrowed his eyes slightly, and complained wildly in his heart, but he didn't expose it, and continued to ask, how long will it take to catch up? 5 minutes to 10 minutes. Tony scanned a message in front of him and replied. In front of him was a message from his friend Rhodes in the military, in 5 minutes, the armed helicopter will arrive at the expected location. Shortly after liftoff, Tony felt that things were out of control, so he secretly contacted Rhodes and asked for firepower assistance. As for why you should apply for fire support. Could be why. Because of the lost dog in front. Please, even if I don't care about it, how far can it fly? The reason for the fire support. Of course, is the monster on him. So far, Tony still can't figure out where this guy came from. He checked it himself, but there was no result. He entrusted the military to check it, but it turned out that there was no such person. So who the hell would he be? Why do you know your identity? Why did it happen to appear at the location of the battle? What is his purpose? From a rational analysis, the other party might be a kidnapper with superpowers. After all, people all over the world know about their own money. Or did he come for his own Mark III, or the arc reactor? After all, this seemingly inconspicuous little thing is likely to be the key to the new energy era. Anyway, no matter what, this guy is definitely not passing by, is he? How can there be such a coincidence? Although the two of them will be a united front and have a common enemy. But what about later? When that guy Obadiah is done, is he going to punch my steel suit and take me with it? I have to guard against it, not to mention the speed of life and death I experienced a few months ago, and not long ago I was plotted against by Obadiah and almost lost my life. Thinking of this in his heart, Tony's chest ached again. This wave is definitely impossible to wave again. Whether you are really a good guy or some villain with ulterior motives, I have to decide for you today. Okay, try to hurry up, or I will have to leave later. Lynch stared at the figure in front of him and said calmly. Go. Boy, this is tens of kilometers away from the coastline. I'm not a child, you can call me Lin. Swim tens of kilometers. Do you think I can't do it? Tony choked. Indeed, with the ability shown by this guy, it seems that swimming for tens of kilometers is not a big deal. Thinking of Lynch's inhuman behavior, Tony couldn't bear his curiosity for a moment, so he asked cautiously, Lynch, who are you? Are you serious, Tony? Lynch chuckled, are you sure you want to talk about this at this time? Okay. Tony also seemed to feel uncomfortable, and then fell silent. Lynch stared at the iron bully in front of him for a long time, as if he wanted to stare at him to death. In fact, Lynch really wanted to stare at this guy to death. Or rather, shoot the guy with heat vision. But obviously, Lynch failed. Shouldn't be. Lynch muttered to himself. He just remembered that in a TV series or movie he had watched before, Superman used perspective and heat vision when he was a child. Could it be that the versions are different? Or is the ability to acquire time too short? Or is it still out of the sun? Unable to figure it out, Lynch closed his eyes and turned on the system. Superman system. Current template, Superman 100% in childhood, Superman in youth 0%. Template redemption list, Youth Superman, Superman, Magic Superman, Gold Superman, Supreme Superboy, Silver Superman. Justice value, 139. After a cursory glance, Lynch said silently in his heart, System, why can't this young Superman use his abilities? He can't even shoot his thermal sight, so it must be a defective product. The juvenile Superman template has been loaded 100%. Theoretically, the juvenile Superman has all the same superpowers as Superman, but to a lesser extent, so it needs to be practiced and developed. Please come on, host. Well, what else can this explanation say? This is not to say clearly that there is no problem with the template, and you have all the abilities, but you are not good at it yourself. There will be time. Lynch looked a little depressed, and browsed the exchange price of the follow-up Superman template with great interest. I don't know, I'm scared. Youth Superman template, 99, Superman, 99 million, Magical Superman, 99 million. Lin Xiu from behind glanced at her justice value and didn't dare to look any further. Afraid of mental collapse. Justice value, 139. This is the justice value gained from fighting the Iron Overlord just now. How do you get the justice value? Although Lynch had a rough guess, he still wanted to hear the official explanation of the system. Through righteous activities, the value obtained, including but not limited to, fighting crime, helping others, promoting justice. This? Ambassador of Justice? Lynch was a little awkward for a while. Although Superman is handsome when he beats up the villain, Superman who is often framed by ordinary people is annoying. A god in the world would be murdered by ordinary people. If Lynch is still an ordinary person, maybe he can still be moved by Superman's mind from the perspective of ordinary people. But now, Lynch possesses the Superman system and has obtained the authority of the gods on Earth. How does it feel to see Superman's deeds at this time? Weak, childish, holy mother. Possesses the power of a god, but is played by ordinary people. What a disgrace is this? Lynch couldn't understand it at all. Even if Lynch thinks he is a kind, upright, caring and responsible young man. But Lynch couldn't stand the kind of grievance that Superman suffered. You can fight crime, it is okay to help others, you can even sacrifice for it. But in the end, because the power is so powerful that people are frightened, they will be framed for no reason, accused and criticized for no reason. This is absolutely unacceptable. This kind of superhero, this Superman, whoever loves it, should go. Lynch doesn't think he is a perfect person, he can only accept revenge with revenge. If being strong is also a sin, what is the use of being strong? Protect those who accuse you of being too powerful. Strength is a tool used to implement one's ideas and pursue one's ideal life, it cannot be a so-called sin. It is absolutely impossible for me to endure that ridiculous humiliation. After thinking about it, Lynch felt his mind clear for a while, and all the troubles since time travel seemed to be gently swept away. Now that I have come into this world, let's see how I will change it. It's just me, Lynch, who certainly won't admit that I'm superhuman. Because I really don't want to be this kind of Superman. Lin Chi, who had cleared his mind and had a smooth flow of thoughts, was suddenly blessed to his heart, so he opened his eyes, held his breath, and suddenly felt some inexplicable impulse flowing between his eyes. This is the feeling, right? Although he has never shot that thing in this world, Lynch has that feeling. Lynch couldn't restrain his excitement for a while, and he couldn't wait to shoot that thing when his eyes turned. But his eyes only stayed on the Iron Tyrant for a while, and then moved to a farther place. That is, 3 gunships ready for combat. Lynch could even see the heavily armed American soldiers on top with serious expressions. Withdrawing his gaze, he squinted his eyes and looked around Iron Man. So, this guy Tony is shaking people. Is this going to take me down? A strange feeling rose in Lynch's heart. Some angry, some funny. Angry, of course, because this guy crossed the river and demolished the bridge. The Iron Overlord has not been killed here, and the next wave of measures to deal with him has already been arranged. And it's funny because, maybe this is Iron Man. Although he has a bad temper, loves farts, and talks endlessly, he will vomit whenever he has a slot. But he is also the man in the Marvel Cinematic Universe who used a mortal body to fight against the world-destroying purple sweet potato essence, and saved half of the universe with a snap of his own life. It is the man who really saved the Marvel Cinematic Universe and Marvel. But love is love, admiration is admiration, and you want to let yourself bow your head to the military? Impossible. Weakness will only be oppressed, and toughness can be exchanged for respect. Even if you want to survive in this land in the future, you cannot avoid dealing with various official forces, such as Tony Stark Industries, the military, the government, and even SHIELD. But before establishing a friendly relationship, you must show your strength and posture. Otherwise, every minute of storage will be controlled by these huge state machines. Do you really think that the various violent institutions and security departments of a superpower are charitable organizations, and they are all good men and women? It is foreseeable that if you believe them foolishly and casually, there will definitely be no good end. It's better to be tough from the beginning, express your attitude, and get the corresponding respect. Of course, this should also be established when the strength allows. Thinking about this, Lynch tapped on Tony's steel suit and said, "Hey, your friends are here." Inside Tony already knew through Jarvis that the reinforcements were in place. Hearing Lynch take the initiative to talk about it, he resolutely blamed it. What friend? If you mean those 3 military planes, I haven't heard the news that they are coming. Really? Why don't you shoot them down? You don't want to be taken away by them, let them study your steel suit. This. Tony blinked twice. I don't think this is a good idea, trust me, the military is not easy to mess with. Okay. Lynch smiled, isn't the military easy to mess with? Inexplicably, I thought of a big green guy, who is also fighting wits with the military, right? The military is not easy to mess with, so am I easy to mess with? While speaking, 3 armed helicopters surrounded the 2 Iron Men head-on. Obadiah Stan, Tony Stark, now order you to stop flying and get out of your steel suits. You have 10 seconds, and in 10 seconds we will open fire. On the plane, someone shouted loudly. 10, 9, 8. I have to stop, we don't have to fight the military. As Tony said, the steel suit hovered in the air and stopped. And Obadiah also stopped tactfully, after all, his battle suit couldn't withstand a few attacks. On the steel suit, Lynch was watching. He was very close to the 3 planes. When necessary, one big jump can board the plane. At that time, there is an old saying that can be described. Close at hand, people are all enemies. Report, the target has no resistance action, the target has no resistance action. Got it, don't fire if it's not necessary. Repeat, don't fire if it's not necessary. Received, target acceptance now. On the plane, the interim commander was reporting the situation with Colonel Rhodes on the other side. They didn't want to fire unless necessary. Because the military has already conducted a file simulation for Lynch, if the 3 helicopters really want to start a battle. Even if the target can be taken down, the military has to send out several death notices. Not that necessary. So after Rhodes communicated with Tony, he planned to contact and control him through more gentle means. Waiting to take it to the military base? Even if this guy is really a monster, it's impossible to find out. Do you really think it's a Hollywood blockbuster? When the US military base is your home, you can come and go whenever you want. At that time, whether it is friendly communication, custody interrogation, or even slice research, it will be easy. Don't fire. Lynch murmured softly. Do you really want to coax the children? Just want to take me away like this? Stay where you are, don't resist, come out of the steel suit. While shouting, the plane slowly approached Iron King and Iron Man. Tony, are you really going to get out of the steel suit and be escorted back to their base? Lynch said in a deep voice. You have to think clearly, even if you have friends in the military. What is friendship in the face of interests? What's more, you have even closed the weapons department now. Do you think your friendship will still be as strong as before? Lynch wants to win over Tony and let him take him back to New York. If you swim back by yourself. It is estimated that I have to face unknown battles on the shore, and I may not be able to resist. After all, although he is a Superman, he is still a child. Tony was silent for a while, thinking about Lynch's words. He was right. The military is a group of greedy and fierce guys. If there are huge interests in front of them, friendship and so on are all jokes. It's not that he doesn't believe in Rhodes, but he's just a colonel. If a higher-ranking general ordered directly, he could not disobey it. And this steel suit. As a weapons dealer, Tony knew its value as a tool of war. Although the current cost is expensive and there are many defects, they can all be solved. If it falls into the hands of the military, will he be released, imprisoned, or even secretly executed, and then push the matter to the Iron Overlord? Slowly, Tony's eyes became cold and rational. Can't step out of the steel suit here. Then he would have to let himself be dealt with, there was nothing he could do. Lynn, you're right. Tony whispered. Sorry. My steel suit is damaged and I can't get out of it at the moment. Why don't I fly back with you? The sound on the plane waited for a while and there was no sound. Lynch narrowed his eyes and eavesdropped for a while, and then laughed. Tony Stark, please get out of the steel suit immediately. Or we will open fire. Repeat, please come out of the steel suit immediately, or we will open fire. Fack. What happened? Tony's face became ugly, and he immediately called Rhodes, but no response. A bad situation happened, and I really shot myself in the foot. Tony, don't be so angry. Lynch grabbed Iron Clothes by the shoulders and stood on it. Shall I give you the whole job? Keep it safe, you haven't seen it. What are you doing? They're going to open fire. Lynch stood still, his eyes locked on the Iron Bully not far away. Warning. Stop your movements immediately, or we will open fire immediately. Warning. A rapid warning sounded, and various weapons were aimed at every part of Lynch from hands to feet. And Lynch stared, feeling the ability that seemed to be engraved on genes. Two frightening rays shot out in an instant, cutting the Iron Overlord into several sections like cutting tofu. The ray pierced the Iron King to the unseen horizon, and the Iron King broke into pieces and fell into the sea. How about this magic trick? Lynch withdrew his hot gaze and asked, crossing his chest. You call this magic? Jarvis, analyze the ray for me just now, and then tell me. Okay, temperature. According to the analysis, there is a 90.0% chance that 6 is this. Looking at the picture given by Jarvis, Tony suddenly felt relieved. In the picture, there is a tall and strong figure. He is wearing a blue tights and a red cloak fluttering in the wind. He is suspended in the sky, and his eyes emit almost exactly the same rays as Lynch just now. Superman. Is there really a Superman in this world, or an Asian guy with black hair and yellow skin? This is so bullshit. Superman. Come on, Tony, don't watch fantasy movies or novels. Lynch turned his gaze to the panicked American soldiers on a plane. The thermal sight just now caused the three planes to quickly distance themselves, although it was useless in Lynch's eyes. I'm not superhuman, so it's impossible for guys like these to make me bow my head. What happened? Major. Answer me. At the military headquarters, a general with thinning hair and an ugly face asked in a deep voice. Sir, it would be unwise to do this. Rhodes stood aside, with 2 soldiers on the left and 1 on the right. He was arguing excitedly, and his black face turned rosy. A few minutes ago, the general led people to seize control of this place, and was about to order to attack Lynch. Facing the officer, Rhodes had no way to resist, so he could only give up his command, and then persuaded the daring general aside. After his arguments, the general agreed not to do anything to Tony, but Rhodes couldn't persuade Lynch that much. Tony is at least a big man in control of Stark Industries, and he has also entered the vision of some special people. No lunatic in the military would dare to do anything to him. However, the general was very interested in Lynch, a monster that came out of nowhere. The U.S. military has always had a deadly tradition of conducting various secret experiments. Lynch's monster quality, coupled with the fact that he could not find any information, was enough to tempt the military, and they took the risk to capture him for research and development of various super soldiers. Shut up, Lieutenant Colonel. Don't you know how much such a powerful human being can help the U.S. Army? If you can't stand here quietly, get out of here. The gray-haired old general had a gloomy face, staring at Rhodes with his eyes wide open. Rhodes looked at him fearlessly, but said nothing. Report. Report. At this time, the communicator on the podium rang. Say. What's going on? The general stood back in front of the stage again, frowning and said. The target suddenly launched an unknown laser attack from both eyes, cutting the steel suit driven by Obadiah into pieces. What? The general twisted his face into a ball, and asked suspiciously, Major, what are you talking about? Sir. The target has the ability to fire laser attacks from both eyes. It's like. Like what? Like Superman. Are you kidding, Major? No. Everyone at the scene saw it, and the thing shot out of his two eyes easily cut and disassembled the steel suit. The target is looking at us. We have now distanced ourselves, waiting for the next action instruction. The general fell silent. After a while, he straightened up and ordered expressionlessly, Fight according to the plan, reinforcements will arrive later. Sir, Tony Stark is still there. If something happens to him. Rhodes said anxiously. Fire. Fire me. The general had a grim face, clenched his right fist, and slammed it hard on the stage. Now. I will bear all the consequences. Yes, sir. On the plane, the middle-aged Caucasian major who served as the temporary commander of the operation switched the communication channel to the mobile communication channel and quickly said, Fight according to the original plan, repeat, fight according to the original plan. Please answer if you receive it. Receive. Receive. Then he turned to look at his deputy, a young guy who had never participated in a battle, and was looking at him nervously. Are you ready? Yes, sir. The boy replied subconsciously, but then hesitantly asked in a low voice, Can we win? The major wanted to curse, but he kept silent. There is no war that is guaranteed to be won, and there is no war of the undead. He looked solemn. For America. Good guy, why do you feel like you've become a villain? Lynch stood on the iron suit with a mocking expression on his face. It has to be said that the brainwashing of the U.S. military is quite successful. It is also a very proud thing to join the military in the United States. But is the U.S. military really that good? Anyone who understands knows the virtues of the U.S. military. The U.S. military itself is a nasty thing. All active duty soldiers are proud of their military status. After retiring, they will know how miserable it is. For the interests of the United States, act as the world's policeman, interfere in other countries' military politics at will, wage wars in other people's homes, do all kinds of bad things, and still have a noble face. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the U.S. military is a typical clown, short-sighted and without a bottom line. Not to mention, the stupidity and ugliness of the U.S. military can be seen at a glance when it comes to Hulk. Today, the military's pursuit of Lynch is of the same nature as Hulk's story. In order to create super soldiers who can rule the world, they wantonly hurt innocent people, and finally self-defeating, unable to clean up the mess. Tony, they're going to fight. What? Are they crazy? Yes, to destroy a man is to drive him mad. They are not far. We have to get out of here. It's too late, you go, they probably won't do anything to you. 3 helicopters surrounded the two, machine guns and shells were all ready to aim. On the helicopter, the major ordered solemnly. Fire. Walk. Lynch squatted slightly, then kicked hard. It's like an arrow that leaves the string and shoots at a helicopter. He no longer uses heat vision. Because he noticed that the heat vision was very exhausting of his physical strength. Just a few seconds of hot gaze made him feel obviously tired. Much more exhausting than fighting the Iron Overlord. Lynch guessed that the energy in Superman's body was still relatively low in childhood, so he couldn't use the ability of heat vision at will. However, it is enough without heat vision. The machine guns loaded by the 3 helicopters fired at the same time, and the firepower net immediately enveloped Lynch in a 5-meter radius. Compared with the 3 most powerful helicopters in the U.S. military, the Iron Bully's firepower is like a child's fireworks. And Lynch used the reaction force to fly through the air at high speed, relying on the reaction to avoid most of the firepower. Then, like a bird of prey, it flew across the sky and pounced on a helicopter. Keep him away. On a helicopter, the major yells. But Lynch's speed was too astonishing, so fast that it was difficult to aim, and he approached the helicopter in just 2 or 3 seconds. The helicopter quickly lifted into the air to dodge, but Lynch still grabbed the fuselage. Got you. Lynch turned over and lay on the helicopter, feeling unbearable pain all over his body for a while. He realized that he had overestimated himself and underestimated the combat power of the US military. The power of the thermal weapons carried by this helicopter was not at the same level as that of ordinary guns. Machine guns and cannons were enough to cause a deadly threat. Otherwise, I might really lose my life here. But Lynch lay on the fuselage, his expression slowly becoming crazy. You want war? Raise your fist, take a deep breath, and it hit hard on the hard fuselage. I'll give you war. With one punch, the helicopter was knocked off balance and swayed in the air. He's on top of us. On the plane, a pilot said with an ugly expression. Fuck K. Another soldier cursed loudly, trying to ease his emotions. After all, from the attack just now, everyone understood what kind of monster they were facing. Invulnerability, no, the Apache helicopter with the most powerful firepower in the U.S. military cannot be destroyed by its machine guns and artillery. A demon who jumps hundreds of meters, and a heavy blow makes the aircraft unbalanced. At this moment, with such a thing falling on their heads, how can they remain calm? Shake him off. The co-pilot said loudly. This monster is attached to the helicopter, and the weapon cannot hit it. We can only pin our hopes on using the helicopter's sudden rise and stop to throw this guy off. The helicopter stabilized its body, and suddenly began to accelerate its flight, accelerate in the air, stop suddenly, and rotate. On the other side, Iron Man was kicked by Lynch, causing him to stagger. This was followed by oncoming streams of machine gun bullets and 3 rockets. Lynch dodges, and Iron Man suffers. Dee called the police when Mark was bombed, and the red light flashed. Tony is in a bad situation right now. The airframe was severely damaged, but fortunately, it could still fly, and the weapon system was not much damaged. But the problem lies in the energy source. The body of the Mark III and Tony's chest use the energy of the Mark I. This energy is not suitable for Mark III, and the energy value has been reduced to less than 10%. Jarvis, is this energy enough to support me in combat? Tony controlled the Mark III and flew a little farther away, looking at the helicopter with Lynch for an air show, with a dignified tone. Sir, I advise you not to do this, as you will most likely not be able to return. Tony looked solemn, thinking about countermeasures. The military could not be contacted. They must have been determined to arrest Lin. They wanted to see people alive and dead bodies. Own. It seems to have been affected, and now after being separated from Lin, he has not been attacked. The most sensible thing to do is to leave here and put pressure on the military to force them to stop. But Tony mused. They are all firing on themselves, will they give up the operation? If I leave, Lin, will it really be safe and sound? Inexplicably, the image of Lin blocking the missile flashed in Tony's mind. According to the screen capture of Jarvis, he gave up dodging and went head-on instead. Tony could guess the psychology of this young man. In order to protect innocent ordinary people, he chose to bear the shells that he might avoid. At that moment, Tony was touched. It turns out that I am not fighting alone. Despite his cautious character, he kept himself quite wary of this ignorant, powerful and perverted guy. But is it really necessary for such a guy who has been fighting side by side with himself, protecting others, and fighting crimes to be wiped out by the military for no reason? Do not. Okay, I may not be able to go back today, but if I leave, Lin will definitely not be able to go back. He raised both hands, elbows shifting. Lin. Today we have to go back to New York together. 2 small missiles roared out from the arms. At this moment, the face of Mark No. Made of steel laughed anthropomorphically. Oh. Lynch laughed and yelled in the air to vent his emotions. The strong air flow swept over him, and even the centrifugal force caused by the sudden change of direction could not throw him off the plane. He clings to the parts of the plane, enjoying the thrill of flying in the sky. Hurry up. It's not strong enough. Lynch yelled and punched the fuselage with a clang, as if complaining to the passengers that the taxi was driving too slowly. Fack, we can't get rid of him. The co-pilot of the helicopter who was shocked by the punch showed despair. Please launch missiles at the target immediately. We will cooperate with you. Leave us alone. Repeat. Launch missiles immediately. Get rid of this bastard. The main driver had a determined face and roared firmly. Launching an airborne missile at a target means bringing the helicopter into the attack range. Once the missile hits head-on, there is a high probability that the two people will be destroyed, and there is only a slim chance of escaping. Received. The missile is launching. Got it. Missile. Where the hell did this missile come from? The main pilot looked at the plane suspiciously, only to see a tiny missile hit the tail of the helicopter, and the flames engulfed half of the fuselage. He hurriedly looked at the other plane, but fortunately, this plane managed to dodge it narrowly. It's Tony Stark. He launched at us, we're going to crash. Fight back. Blow up this guy. Lynch was happily experiencing the plane check-in. It wasn't that Lynch didn't want to hammer down the plane. It was because the plane was solid and had received more than a dozen iron fists, but the surface was bumpy. Lynch was about to change his strategy and break into the cockpit when the plane stabilized. Unexpectedly, a helicopter exploded and burst into flames, and fell directly on the sea. Looking up again, Iron Man was breathing fire all the way, and was coming at a high speed. He originally thought that the energy of the steel suit might not be enough, so he didn't want to involve him. At that time, even if he loses the enemy and plunges into the deep sea, the US military will have nothing to do. If the Mark III runs out of energy, he has to bring a tow bottle, not worth it. But after the war started, he found that it was a bit taken for granted that he wanted to destroy 3 helicopters with his own ability. He doesn't have the most critical flying ability, as long as the helicopter distances himself, he can only be beaten passively. So seeing Iron Man flying over at this moment, he suddenly felt that this guy was a bit handsome. Of course, it's still close to him. Hey! Tony! I'm here. He waved to Iron Man, why are you back? Can't you find your way home? Iron Man flew to Lynch's side, and then Tony's voice sounded. Please, I know New York very well, I'm afraid you won't find the shore. Thank you. I'll treat you to a hamburger when I go back, but you have to pay for it. Come on, we have to go back to New York together today. Iron Man stretched out his hand, and Lynch grabbed it. At this moment, a large missile roared with exhaust. Tony! Go! Lynch watched the missile fly, his eyelids twitched. I can't handle this diameter, can I? Relax. You'll be fine. While teasing, Tony urged Jarvis. Maximum power. Hurry up. Less than 9% energy. Less than 8% energy. Iron Man accelerated abruptly, accelerating and fleeing in a smooth manner. Then he raised his palm lit up, and a shot hit the missile behind him. Boom! The heat wave and the shock wave swept in, swallowing the helicopter behind him, and then sending Iron Man flying upside down. The second helicopter crashed. And Lynch opened his mouth, covered one ear, and spewed out unintelligible fragrant words from his mouth. Good guy, if this kind of power is used now, it is estimated that the story will be rewritten as Superman's death. But fortunately, I avoided it, and the enemy only had one helicopter left. Tony, are you okay? After knocking on Iron Man's iron head, Lynch shouted against his head. Fine. Tony quickly scanned the information on his face. Just too bad news. Say. Mark, lacks energy, and a fleet is approaching 3 kilometers away. Okay. Take it easy, Tony. Lynch smiled. Can your Mark III dive? What? I mean, how long can you survive in deep water? 1 or 2 hours, what do you mean? Oh, the energy is exhausted. The flames ejected from the steel suit slowly extinguished, leading Lynch to fall headlong into the sea. I see. Then, game over. Lynch turned his eyes and stared at the surviving helicopter. 2 heat lines of sight shot out, piercing it instantly. The last helicopter crashed. While the 2 fell into the sea, Lynch glanced at the fleet from afar. Well, it's a look that can't be provoked. Tony, can you point me in the right direction? We're back in New York. On a ship, a soldier stood up and said excitedly, Sir, the target has been found. Oh. Hearing the words, the captain walked over quickly, approached the radar and asked. Are you sure it's those 2 guys? Yes, sir. Radar shows target confirmed. Are the torpedoes deployed? He turned his head and asked again. It's ready and ready to launch. Another soldier replied. The captain nodded, and suddenly asked, Can it be hit? Can you guarantee to destroy the target? The soldier in charge of the torpedo launch glanced at his officer suspiciously, a little confused. He didn't know why the experienced captain would ask such a low-level question. In his view, the targets were just two Iron Men and special humans with average speed and no means of countermeasures. Even if they can fly into the sky and escape from the ground, but this is in the sea, they are suppressed by the heavy sea water, their mobility will be greatly reduced, and the hit rate of torpedoes will be greatly increased. Moreover, missiles with the same power are several times more powerful in the sea than in the air due to environmental problems. The only drawback of the torpedo is that it has a short range and is easy to be countered, making it difficult to achieve results. But these two guys, according to intelligence, they don't have any ability to counter torpedoes now. At this moment, if they eat a torpedo that can sink a ship in the sea, no matter what monster they are, they will be smashed to pieces. So he replied affirmatively, "Report, sir, I guarantee that I can hit the target and destroy them." The captain nodded, then stepped aside and dialed a comm. "General Ross, the target has been locked, the torpedo has been deployed and is ready to be launched at any time." "Okay, thank you for your hard work, wait for the order." "Yes, sir." Tens of meters below the sea, Lynch dragged the Mark III into a mermaid, and quickly shuttled through the dark deep sea, startling countless strange marine life in the distance. His speed is very fast, even if he is dragging a heavy iron bump, he is comparable to any swimming champion in human history. But, "Lin, can you go faster? Or we'll get kicked in the ass by them." Tony's voice sounded particularly deep and depressed in the sea. Lynch rolled his eyes. "Brother, I also want to hurry up, but the problem is that my golden finger is a child's Superman template, not a Neptune template. This speed is already very good, okay? When it comes to swimming, in my previous life I only knew how to do it like a dog planer." "Tony." Lynch opened his mouth, and a string of bubbles spit out from his mouth. "Aren't you a big arms dealer? Can't you contact your friends in the army? Don't tell me you can't help at all." "I'm trying." Tony looked annoyed. He's a little numb. The Mark ran out of energy, but fortunately, Jarvis can still use some functions that consume less energy, such as communication. But after so long, Rhodes still couldn't get in touch, probably under control. Instead, the assistant Potts was contacted, and she is now trying to start a dialogue with the military. It just depends on the situation that it may be too late. It is estimated that the destroyer will have to drive to the faces of the two of them in a while. In this extraordinary period, only some extraordinary means can be used. "Jarvis, help me get through Rhodes' communication." "Yes, sir." Half a minute later, Jarvis made it. "I'm Tony Stark, which general are you? Why are you attacking me? Where is Rhodes?" Tony was worried that the other party would shut down the communication, so he said quickly. "I am Lieutenant General Thaddeus Ross, Mr. Stark. My soldiers are on a mission. If you interfere with them, you will do so at your own risk." On the other side, General Ross remained expressionless, and responded lightly to the communicator that suddenly made a sound. "If your mission is to persecute a young man who has protected American civilians and fought crime, I have a hard time doing it." "Oh." General Ross propped his hands on the stage with a cold tone. "I only see a dangerous, uninformed non-U.S. citizen who poses a great threat to U.S. security. Please, don't use such stupid excuses, please." Tony immediately invaded the military system and inquired about General Ross information. "Lieutenant General Ross. I happen to know a little bit about what you've done, like the Super Soldier Project. Like dealing with Lynn Stark. I warn you, don't obstruct the operation, or you will be regarded as a threat to the security of the United States, and you will bear the consequences. Seriously. Your plan made such a big accident, and you made a big guy, for the safety of the United States. Believe me, I can make you a world-renowned superstar in one day. Stark. Someone has to make a sacrifice, for the greater good. Fact squid. I'll make you pay, and you'll be court-martialed. I promise. Goodbye, Stark, you better worry about yourselves, the torpedoes have been aimed at you, you have a minute to say goodbye. For the sake of the overall situation." Lynch sneered, and endless disgust and anger suddenly rose in his heart. General Ross. It really is this idiot. A super soldier plan created the Hulk, which gave birth to the Abomination, and destroyed the lunatic general in a district of New York. What's even more frightening to think about is that this guy caused a lot of trouble, but he rose all the way, and even became the Secretary of State of the United States, and even had this guy at Iron Man's funeral. It's ugly just thinking about it. Why do you say that? The reason why this Rose can rise all the way is because he is a very patriotic and loyal to the country. What is this concept? He and Captain America are characters with the same core. So that explains why he was able to show up at Iron Man's funeral. Because of Captain America, Iron Man is equally patriotic. They are heroes, they save the world, they save the universe, but they are essentially patriotic Americans. Captain America was a war hero during World War II, inspiring countless young people to join the war. Iron Man manufactured arms and weapons for the U.S. military to help the U.S. fight the war, and General Ross even carried out the Super Soldier Project. So Ross and Tony talked about the overall situation and American interests, and Tony was speechless. But because of the big picture, should I make sacrifices? What a joke. If he had to sacrifice, why didn't Tony hand over the steel suit? Besides, I'm not an American. What does the United States like to do? Unless Thanos comes and snaps his fingers, what does it matter to Lynch even if the United States is destroyed? Lynch loosened his steel suit. He knew that it was time for him and Iron Man to part ways. Tony, they came after me. Lynch shook his head. You don't need to follow me anymore. Then he accelerated sharply, and he wanted to flee. A big killer like a torpedo. I don't know if I can survive. System. It's time to launch torpedoes. Good sir. A death torpedo quietly chased Lynch. Lynch turned his head, with endless resentment in his eyes. Boom. The dull shock wave spread from Lynch as the origin. Is it over? Report. The target has been found. The target still has vital signs. The target is seriously injured and comatose, but not dead. Recovering. Report. Found Tony Stark, recovering. Bring that guy back to the base and throw Stark ashore. In the military base, the lights of a laboratory suddenly turned on. Generals in military uniform and researchers in white uniform stand in front of a transparent cage observing their new research subjects. Inside the cage was Lynch, who had lost consciousness and was covered in instruments all over his body. He closed his eyes tightly, his face was pale, and his whole body was dripping with blood, covered with shocking wounds. If he wasn't still breathing and his heart was beating, everyone would have thought he was dead. In fact, no one thought that Lynch would survive. It's incredible, to be able to survive a torpedo blast at such close distance in the sea. The middle-aged white-clothed man standing beside the general pushed his thick glasses, looked at Lynch frantically and muttered. He's more like that big green guy. Okay. General Ross interrupted with some dissatisfaction. I didn't come to listen to you talking nonsense. He glanced coldly at the guy who had a huge reaction, feeling disdainful in his heart. Tell me, what the hell is this guy? Will it help your research? The man in white restrained himself, turned around and took a report, and quickly said while browsing, his muscles are stronger than any known Earth creature, so that he can resist bullets and missiles. There is an unknown part of his cells that stores energy. Although most of them are now in a state of energy depletion, this means that he can rely on this energy without eating or breathing. So what's the conclusion? General Ross stared at him. Do you think he is a product of a laboratory, or evolved by chance? No, no, no. The man in white raised his head, and his eyes became frenzied or crazy again. This is absolutely impossible to be a product of an experiment, and it is unlikely to be an accidental mutation evolution. Because he is too perfect, too similar to human beings, it is completely considered an advanced human life form. He is like. He hesitated, his voice gradually lowered. A god? General Ross saw through his thoughts and said directly. Yes, sir. The man in white walked into the transparent cage, reaching out his hand as if to caress Lynch in front of him. A young deity. Can God be hurt too? General Ross snorted coldly. He is like a dead dog, even a god, he has to be imprisoned by us for research. There is no god in this world. If there is, it should be made by us and obey orders. Research carefully and see what this god can do to us. General Ross took a deep look at Lynch, turned and left. Rod! What the hell are you doing? Do you know that I almost slept in the bottom of the ocean forever? On the shore, Tony, who was found by Potts and got in his exclusive car, finally contacted Rhodes. Sorry, I don't want to be like this either, that guy is a lunatic, keen on all kinds of dangerous experiments, he won't let this tempting guy go. Rhodes was helpless, and after Rose left, he finally regained his freedom. Don't talk nonsense. Tell me who to find to make that madman pay. I'm afraid it will be difficult, Stark. He has very strong connections in the army. I'm afraid you will have to figure out your own way. Fack. Tony slammed the communication device on the car seat, his eyes widened, and his heart was filled with anger. Tony, look at this. His Pepper Potts handed over a tablet with a video playing on it. The picture is blurry and still shaking, the sound is very noisy and chaotic, but the content can be barely read. A human was running at high speed, then jumped 3 to 5 meters high, and punched a huge robot, knocking the robot into the air. Not far away, there was another Iron Man who was about the same size as a human. After the silver-gray robot was knocked into the air, the audience was silent, followed by crazy cheers. Then this figure blocked the missile. Tony's face changed, and he frowned and asked, "Why haven't these videos been cleaned up?" "It was supposed to be cleaned up, but you guys didn't come back, so I let people fire up these videos." Potts looked at Tony worriedly. Tony froze for a moment, then quickly slid the tablet. On the internet, on TV shows, on talk shows. Everyone is discussing this. Nearly all of New York knew that there were two heroes who defeated this big silver man of steel who was wreaking havoc in New York. They named them Iron Man and Wonder Boy, and they had a lively discussion about who they are. Tony threw the tablet aside and looked at Potts with tenderness in his eyes. If Tony really falls into the hands of the military, then Potts' next move will be to reveal the true face of Iron Man and point the finger at the military, using public opinion pressure to save Tony. "You're right, I've got some clearer images here, keep going harder, I want everyone to know who's protecting them and who's the hero." The car stopped and they arrived home. Tony got out of the car, only to see a gentleman with a surprised hairline approaching him, wearing a suit and smiling amiably. "I'm Coulson, from the Homeland Strategic Defense Offensive and Logistics Support Agency. I made an appointment with you to visit." He stretched out his hand, and Tony was stunned for a moment, then surprise appeared on his face, and he immediately held Coulson's hand. "You came at just the right time, and I happen to have something I wanted to talk to you about." In the laboratory, one experiment after another is proceeding in an orderly manner. Experiment 3-1, prepare to release electric current. Currently releasing. Lynch's body trembled slightly, but he didn't wake up. Some people in the laboratory also trembled with Lynch's body. After all, after conducting a series of experiments, they gradually understood how powerful this guy who survived being hit by a torpedo and was imprisoned in a transparent cage was. If he wakes up, will the cage hold him? His human appearance is simply a disguise. Or as their lab head guessed. "Boss, is he really a god?" A senior researcher couldn't help asking. For a moment everyone thought it was ridiculous. The people present are all scientific elites with achievements in the field of life sciences. But at this moment, facing such a creature, their materialism has been greatly impacted. Is such a creature with the same appearance as a human being a god in mythology, a more advanced and powerful humanoid life form? I don't know, but I'm sure we'll find out soon. Their heads had deep eyes, as if they wanted to see through Lynch. "Tell me, we're trying to wake him up." Someone on the side was shocked and understood what they were doing. "Yes, I want to talk to him." The middle-aged man in white took off his glasses and looked around. "Enough data has been collected, and you should also know what kind of existence this guy is." His expression gradually became crazy, and his tone was bewitching. "He's too perfect, too powerful, don't you want to know what he is? There's no way to figure it out just by experimenting. Only after communicating with him can I get the answer. You also want to know, is he a god or a devil? Or, the ultimate mystery of human evolution?" Everyone was silent. Who can say no to this? Increase the current. Keep increasing until he wakes up. Everyone's fiery eyes were fixed on Lynch, looking forward to the moment when he woke up. After a long time, Lynch's fingers moved slightly, and then slowly opened his eyes. He looked around and turned his eyes to the front, through the lens-like glass, looking directly at a group of big men in white with fanaticism on the opposite side. "It was you who imprisoned me." Lynch had a long dream. He returned to the original world, and everything he traveled through was like a wonderful and short-lived dream. He returned to the depraved, confused and frustrated Lynch. Lynch was an orphan, but not from the start. His whole life was written by tragedy. Accidentally took away his father, but he did not give up on life. He studies hard, helps his mother with housework, and does some small jobs that can make money in his spare time to share the financial burden. His childhood life was not as colorful as those of his peers, with no new clothes, toys, or even friends. In his childhood life, only rainy days would drip and leak, which caused his mother and son to sleep badly all night. When the winter was cold and windy, he shivered in bed but was reluctant to burn the stove in the dilapidated hut, and his mother, who was always kind and never complained, always encouraged him to grow up. Although he was poor, he was not depressed. Although it was difficult, he did not think of giving up. Because poverty and misery are always temporary, he believes that all these can be changed. Therefore, he is diligent, humble and studious, and grows tenaciously. Sometimes he also thinks of his father, and he doesn't blame his father. Because his father left him with happy memories. Father is always very busy, for the sake of the family, he works hard. He was so busy that when he got up, his father had already gone out to work. When he was so busy that he fell asleep, his father returned home exhausted, and could only kiss him in his sleep. He was so busy that he left in a hurry before he grew up. Lynch only hoped that if his father really went to another world, he could enjoy life and stop being so busy for anyone else. Smoke a pack of good cigarettes that you usually only receive during the Chinese New Year, and you are usually reluctant to buy 2 decent clothes, meet 2 friends, and have a small meal of wine. Overall, Lynch felt that his childhood was not bad. He is working hard like this, looking forward to growing up and having the ability to change this family, so that his mother, who has been working hard for half his life, can have a happy and beautiful old age. Until the summer when the wish came true. He finished the college entrance examination, completed the score evaluation, and couldn't wait to tell his mother the good news. Then I found my mother's red and swollen eyes and her desperate face. He only met such a mother once, on the day he learned that his father had an accident. He asked his mother what was wrong, and his mother said it was all right. It's okay, of course it's okay. How could my mother tell herself the bad news? While his mother was out shopping for vegetables, he rummaged through boxes and cabinets at home, and finally discovered the reason. It was a hospital report. Lynch collapsed after repeated confirmation. Advanced liver cancer. This time, no matter how hard he tried, it was useless. One afternoon in his sophomore year, he received a call from the hospital and his mother left. His dearest relatives have left him. So what is the point of your own efforts? Lynch was crushed. He couldn't sleep all night, and when he closed his eyes, the figures of his parents appeared in front of him. Only when the night passed and dawn came, he could fall asleep exhausted. He learned to smoke, 1 or 2 packs a day, although he never understood why someone would be addicted to such a difficult thing to smoke. He learned the game and indulged in the game all day long. Although the game did not make him happy, it could make him escape. In this way, he spent the last 2 years of his college career in a degenerate way, until he was dragged to a party and watched a movie when he was about to graduate. When he saw Iron Man snap his fingers and bring back half of the creatures in the universe, he suddenly thought of it. If I snap this finger, can I bring them back? Consciousness slowly returned to the dilapidated body. Lynch woke up. He looked around wearily, and the memories after crossing gradually came back to his mind. He didn't die, because in a critical moment, he turned on the system. The system was like this. Superman system. Current template, Superman 100% in childhood, Superman in youth 0%. Template redemption list, Youth Superman, Superman, Magic Superman, Gold Superman, Supreme Superboy, Silver Superman. Justice value, 51123. Although he didn't know why there were so many justice points, he was still overjoyed and immediately asked the system if he could exchange some templates. The system's answer is that Youth Superman and Superman templates can be partially exchanged. So he immediately exchanged 5.0% of the Youth Superman template. Immediately afterwards, the torpedo exploded on him. He lost consciousness. Lynch felt his physical condition. After exchanging the 5.0% adolescent Superman template, he became even more powerful. Although the physical condition is very bad, the strength has been greatly reduced due to weakness. But his gaze easily penetrated the thick double-sided special glass, and looked at the people behind the cage. This is Superman's perspective. It was you who imprisoned me. Lynch spoke hoarsely. The man in white standing at the front looked excited and said, "We don't want to imprison you, it's just for safety. Are you an Earth human? Or an alien? Or?" Lynch shook his heavy head, a little annoyed by this guy's words. He felt that in his own state, it seemed difficult to escape from here. So I thought about it, and replied, "I am a human from Earth, but I am also an alien." Oh. The middle-aged man was very excited when he heard Lynch's answer, and continued to ask, "Then are you a product of aliens? Or are you a hybrid?" Lynch was a little surprised to hear this. These guys, after studying for so long, still can't figure out their Kryptonian identity? Do you really not read comics and movies? Several male protagonists of the Big Bang Theory flashed in Lynch's mind. If it was a few of them, surely they would have guessed that they were Superman right away. This class of scientists is not good enough. He bowed his head and thought for a while, then replied weakly, "I am an alien, I grew up on Earth." The cue was obvious, and it was only a matter of flying up and shouting, "I'm Superman." Unexpectedly, the man in white seemed to really not know about Superman or what, but continued to ask, "Then why did you grow up on the Earth? Do you know your compatriots?" Lin Chi was speechless and decided to ignore him. If someone asked him if he was Superman, he would definitely not admit it. I didn't expect that there was such a strange thing that even Superman had never heard of. If you are tired, take the time to rest. Suddenly, Lynch felt a little restlessness in his body. It seemed that every cell in my body was restless, longing for something. Lynch turned his head suspiciously to find the source of this restlessness. Suddenly, he thought of something, and then raised his head. Through layers of obstacles, he saw the light. A ray of light shot out from the dark sky. Dawn has come. He. Lynch grinned and laughed loudly. The dawn has come, can justice be far behind? He roared excitedly. Then, with the last bit of energy, he shoots a heat gaze overhead. The thermal sight penetrated from the ground into the sky, attracting a ray of sunlight. And Lynch was reborn from the ashes like a phoenix in the sun. The wounds on his body healed quickly, his skin became radiant and smooth, and his heart beat stronger. With a slight struggle, all the restraints and equipment fell off, and he was slowly suspended in the sunlight. Now, it's my turn, are you ready? Lynch slowly levitated from the chair, silently feeling the ability to fly. And outside this cage, everyone panicked. My God, he's flying. His wound is completely healed. Why is this happening? It's light. He was bathed in sunlight and reborn. Quickly sound the alarm and turn on the protection system. This place can't trap him. A group of people are like ants on a hot pot, running around in a hurry. After half a minute, the harsh siren sounded. I know what he is. A younger researcher said with a look of shock and disbelief. For a while, most of the people looked over. With trembling hands, he held up his phone. On the phone, a picture from Wikipedia was displayed. Tall and strong figure, blue tights, red cape, iconic S pattern. The name of the entry is Superman. He read one by one in a strange tone. He is invulnerable to swords and guns, he is infinitely powerful, his eyes can see through and emit heat vision, he can fly like a bird, he can absorb sunlight and convert it into energy, so as to quickly heal and use his abilities. After reading the back, he was already full of panic. Isn't Superman a fictional character? The man in white seemed to have found the answer, but he couldn't believe it at all. Are you Superman? He murmured, approaching Lynch, begging for an answer. His thirst for knowledge defeated his desire to survive. At this moment, he just wanted to find out Lynch's identity. Lynch glanced at him lightly and replied, No, I'm not Superman. Looking at this guy's confused and lost look, Lynch said again, But I am indeed a Kryptonian. After speaking, Lynch felt that his condition had almost recovered. So he raised his head, and two more blazing and powerful thermal sights gushed out. He maintained his thermal vision for a full 10 seconds, destroying almost everything above his head, and a passage that allowed him to fly out appeared. So he put away his thermal vision, twisted his body, and flew into the sunny sky. Flying high into the sky, Lynch felt extremely comfortable and closed his eyes involuntarily. The warm sunshine made him seem to return to the warm little bed when he was a child. It's just that his good memories didn't last long, and a rocket disturbed his pleasure. Lynch opened his eyes and scanned the barracks below. This is a temporary military base, which occupies a small area and may have hundreds of people. The most powerful weapons are only some small missiles. Looking at the slightly chaotic soldiers below, Lynch had anger and hatred brewing on his face. He didn't forget that these guys almost killed him. If he hadn't reacted quickly, he might have become a cold experimental specimen in the laboratory at this moment. He just swept his gaze away, and his hot gaze hit the rocket, setting off brilliant fireworks. With endless resentment and anger, the aloof Lynch said. Blood for blood, are you ready to bleed? Urgent gathering. Urgent gathering. Bring on your gear and assemble urgently. This is not a drill, repeat, this is not a drill. What is that? Is there something wrong with the laboratory? God. Another monster. Don't panic. General Ross rushed to the open space of the barracks while ordering the soldiers around him with a sullen face. Get ready for battle. General Ross yelled at the panicked soldiers. At this time, a small officer with a gloomy face ran out from the side, approached General Ross and said, Sir, what is this guy? General Ross did not respond to his gaze, and walked quickly while saying, a newly discovered experimental product, just captured today. A new experimental product? A trace of dissatisfaction flashed in the eyes of this short officer. There is an accident now. Do you need me to solve it? General Ross did not speak, and walked to the center of the open space in one breath, looking up at Lynch. He stared at Lynch blankly for a while, then turned his head, and solemnly said to the officer beside him, "Of course, if you can." In the air, Lynch looked at the army lined up below with leisure. Lynch didn't act preemptively. He wanted to let these guys understand what kind of existence he had provoked, so as not to bother him with cats and dogs in the future. To stand upright is to be crushed with dignity. "Ross, are you surprised to see me again?" Lynch's indifferent voice came from high above the sky, which made General Ross' soldiers feel strange in their hearts. Some people couldn't help but looked at General Ross and found that his face was blank. "What do you want?" General Ross said in a stiff tone. Lynch laughed out loud. "What else would I want but your life?" General Ross was not surprised. It wasn't the first time he had to deal with this kind of thing. Those who were persecuted by his experimental plan wanted his life. But he has never been afraid, because he is loyal to the country and does not contain any selfishness in what he does. Even if he died, he would sacrifice his life for the country and die well. In his mind, it should be so. Put the country first and the overall situation as the most important thing. In front of this, all personal gains and losses are unimportant. Therefore, he did not feel guilty about those experiments that others regarded as inhumane or even anti-human. Because if one day the country needs his devotion, he will dedicate everything without hesitation. "If you can." General Ross replied with a straight chest. Lynch looked at the fearless Ross, feeling a little dull for a while. He felt that killing such a rose would not wash away everything he had suffered. How should he be punished? While thinking, Lynch noticed the familiar short officer beside Ross. So he had a plan in mind. Lynch snorted coldly, and two hot eyes suddenly shot out, pointing directly at Rose. "Fire! Shoot back!" An officer shouted. But the thermal sight didn't hit Rose, but drew a circle around Rose in the chaos. "I can kill you anytime I want." Lynch stood tall in the air, turning a blind eye to the attacks falling on him, like a god or demon. In the sun, he smiled like a sunny boy. "It's just that everyone below feels a bone-chilling chill. But not now, not here, it's too cheap for you." Lynch stared closely at the ugly face without fear. "Before I faint, I swear to let you die with endless regret and pain." Lynch's eyes turned, and a hot gaze that represented death shot out from his eyes. "Now let you feel a little ahead of time." He turned his head gently, and kept gliding across the barracks with his hot gaze. Wherever he passed, both buildings and weapons were turned into coke. General Ross' men began with high morale, fighting back with a variety of weapons. Rifles, machine guns, bazookas, individual missiles. When they discovered that even the most powerful weapons could not hurt Lynch one bit, they fell apart. Everyone dropped their weapons and ran desperately to dodge the two death rays. In just a few minutes, no one dared to attack Lynch. A large number of soldiers shivered and hid together, raising their hands to signal their surrender. Lynch put away his thermal vision and let go of the soldiers who surrendered. Heat sight didn't kill too many people. Most who tried to dodge were able to dodge. Those who died under Lynch's hot sight all died because they were determined to kill Lynch. Now, in the huge barracks, hundreds of soldiers have completely lost their will to fight. Lynch was victorious, defeating the established modern army by himself. He landed slowly, trying to get back to the ground, to appreciate Rose's reaction. Boom! Suddenly, a bullet hit him in the face. Lynch's eyelids twitched, and his anger flared up again. Looking back, he suddenly became happy. It turned out to be an acquaintance, the little officer, Bronsky. "Do you want to die? Do you want to die?" Lynch leaned over and flew in front of him, speaking from a height of 3 or 4 meters in the air, feeling full of oppression. But this guy still had a look of disdain and indifference. Instead he continued to shoot at Lynch with the muzzle of his gun. Bang bang bang. He finished emptying the pistol magazine and threw the pistol aside with a defiant look on his face. "That's it? Is this your ability?" The bullet hit Lynch precisely in the face, but everyone knew it had no effect. The only function is to annoy Lynch, making Lynch, who wanted to have fun with this guy, look cold and murderous. And showing the officer's tenacious fighting will, inexplicably reminded Lynch of the phrase, "Even if you break your hands and feet in front of the enemy, you must continue to fight." This guy didn't just break his hands, he even suffered comminuted fractures all over his body. Lynch's perspective was activated, and he saw the steel on this guy's spine. His name is Bronsky. He was transformed by General Ross, and injected with the same super soldier serum as Captain America. In the battle with the Hulk, he was kicked by Hulk into a comminuted fracture of the whole body because of the head iron. Then his spine was implanted with steel bars, and he was injected with gamma serum in Mr. Land's laboratory in New York, turning into an abomination and making trouble in New York. He hates gray skin, has a ferocious face, and has flesh thorns on his body. His size and strength are stronger than that of Hulk, and he suppressed Hulk all the way during the battle with Hulk. In the end, because of the needs of the plot, he was killed by the Hulk. This guy has fought repeatedly and failed repeatedly, and has fought Hulk head-to-head many times. He is really Marvel's #1 iron-headed boy. And now, this guy has a steel frame in his body, which has obviously been crushed and fractured by the Hulk. But look at what he said, that's it. Lynch straight up good guy. Face slaps and, just this, serial attacks really don't do much damage, but the insult value is full. I can't fix it all. According to the process, a comminuted fracture or a flower. Lynch's eyes lingered on the fearless, iron-headed boy Bronsky, who was even eager to try. You are very brave. Lynch landed slowly and stood in front of Bronsky, showing a mocking smile. What was the result of the last time you were so courageous? Lynch glanced at Bronsky's back, and then asked lightly. How does it feel to have a comminuted fracture all over your body? Does it feel good to support your body with steel? Bronsky was immediately ashamed and angry, and under all the anger, he directly shook his fist at Lynch. Out of control. Lynch sneered. Bronsky, who has been injected with super soldier serum, has the same ability as the US team, and both have physical fitness that exceeds ordinary numbers. But beyond that, the serum has a side effect. It amplifies the personality traits of the user. So the kind-hearted Captain America became Captain America, and many other people who took the serum became villains. The same goes for Bronsky. What it is magnified is competitive spirit. Bronsky, who has been injected with serum, is incomparably competitive. That's why in Hulk's story, he toughened Hulk in an incomprehensible posture, and said, that's it, just like he said to Lynch. He is eager to defeat a strong enemy, even in the face of an enemy that is too strong to resist. His competitive spirit makes him never back down. In the end, out of a strong desire to compete, he forced Mr. Lawn to inject him with gamma serum, turning him into Abomination. Therefore, facing Lynch, even if he has seen Lynch's invincibility, he will directly attack without any fear. Even though he had already received a lesson in this regard, the entire spine was filled with steel nails, and a row of marks appeared on his back as soon as he exerted force, like a monster. But so what? Bronsky, even if I die, I will die in the battle with the enemy, and I will never retreat or run away. Bronsky was obviously much stronger than ordinary people, and his movements were so fast and fierce that the naked eye could see that many soldiers who were secretly observing the situation here secretly had absurd fantasies. Can you defeat that monster? The beautiful fantasy only lasted a second. In Lynch's eyes, Bronsky's movements are like an 80-year-old grandmother, slow and weak. Let him have no desire to fight. So Lynch stretched out his hand, and slapped Bronsky's face with a light-speed slap. Bronsky didn't seem to understand what was going on, he just felt his head spinning for a while, and then fell down unsteadily. All around, the soldiers buried their heads lower, like ostriches trying to hide themselves, very interesting. Lynch stepped forward and dragged Bronsky like a dead dog to General Ross. Then he threw Bronsky in front of General Ross, who had an ugly face, as if he had thrown it casually. General Ross stood in a strange circle, daring not to move like a Tang monk who was cast into a prison by Monkey King. This is your overall situation. The super soldier plan you have studied so hard. Lynch seemed to be saying that the weather is fine today. It's not bad, it's very courageous, maybe it's very effective to form a death squad. General Ross was silent, maintaining the last bit of decency in embarrassment. I said, are you out of your mind? Lynch sighed, unteachable like a child. People study high-tech weapons, and you study superhuman soldiers. He went on to say even more exaggeratedly, you don't really think you can create a super soldier who can fly into the sky and escape from the ground, do you? Rose's expression fluctuated, and finally he looked at Lynch and said, you think it's impossible? Then what are you? Lynch shook his head. I can't make it, even if you can make it, how should you control it? Spiritual brainwashing? Implanting a control chip? Or praying that he can think you are his creator, so he will obey you? General Ross didn't answer any more, he acted like you didn't understand what he said, and I'm not the same guy as you. Okay. Lynch clapped his hands, and then his body gradually rose. The conversation is over. Now, let's make a decision. Lynch slowly rose to a high place, and his voice became ethereal and elusive. Don't you like making choices? When the soldiers below heard this, they couldn't help but raise their hearts in their throats. Option 1, the lives of your soldiers. Some soldiers looked at Lynch in horror, but they were too far away and the sun was too bright to see Lynch's face clearly. Option 2, your own life. Lynch paused, and faintly laughed. 1 minute, I'm fair, you also have 1 minute. If there is no answer, then you all go to hell. General Ross finally changed color suddenly. He stared at Lynch full of anger and shame, and his breathing gradually became heavy. On one side is myself, on the other side are hundreds of soldiers. How to choose? 10, 9, 8, 7. I choose myself. General Ross said, his words were full of sadness and self-blame. Oh. Lynch accepted Rose's choice calmly, and continued to ask, why? General Ross said with a cold expression, because I am more valuable to the country than soldiers. Great answer. Lynch applauded softly. Soldiers, it is a pity that you have been abandoned because of the overall situation. Lynch teased. Then please don't try to escape, don't try to resist, don't try to hide, close your eyes, and count down for tens of seconds. No. A soldier yelled with his head in his hands and his eyes closed. I don't want to die, I don't want to die. Someone hit his body and whispered tremblingly. Why are so many of us so fucking inferior to his life? Finally, a black guy stood up and yelled at Ross with a gun. We have been taught since we were young that everyone's life is equal. Why do we have to trade your life just because of the bullshit you said? Yeah, isn't our fate our fate? Kill him. Kill him and we might live. The scene is out of control. Driven by the desire to survive, everyone went crazy. No, no, what is your life in front of the big picture? The time is up, accept your fate. Lynch's eyes suddenly shot a hot look. Do not. Everyone collapsed, some shot at Rose, some ran away, and some stood there waiting to die. But after a long time, Lynch's hot gaze still didn't hit the soldiers. Lynch looked down quietly, and suddenly said loudly. Now do you know? I am the big picture. I am the overall situation. As soon as these words came out, General Ross and his soldiers all turned pale. They were all teased by Lynch. Like clowns, under Lynch's persecution, they staged a ridiculous comedy. Because of the overall situation, General Ross made the decision to abandon the soldiers. Desperate for their lives, the soldiers shot at General Ross. But now, they discovered that Lynch had no intention of killing them at all. However, grievances have been buried, and estrangement has arisen. Lynch wanted this effect, and he didn't want to be an executioner. Revenge does not necessarily end with physical destruction. Destroying a person's spirit is more cruel and effective than destroying a person's body. Besides, this farce has come to an end. Lynch looked towards the sky, where a plane and a steel man were galloping towards. 3 minutes later. The plane landed in front of Lynch together with Iron Man. The old acquaintance Coulson got off the plane and followed Iron Man to Lynch. You guys are late. Lynch said bluntly. It's better not to be late, Lynn, are you okay? Tony was a little embarrassed. The situation at the scene was somewhat unexpected. In the barracks, the ground was full of wreckage and ruins left by the heat site. A large number of soldiers squatted or sat downcastly. General Ross stood in a circle with a dejected face like a defeated commander. As for Lynch, Tony saw him flying in the air from a distance. So the situation is very clear, and the situation is completely opposite to what they expected. Lynch suppressed the entire camp forcefully with his powerful ability. As far as it sounds, the truth is right in front of you. This made Tony, who rushed to rescue Lynch in a hurry, feel a little awkward. If he didn't bring Coulson here, Lynch could do whatever he wanted here and run away. But he took Coulson with him, and at this time he might want to stop Lynch from doing so. Because after all, Ross was a general of his country. Even if they disagreed, it was impossible for them to watch Lynch just kill Ross to vent their anger. I think you should ask General Ross, he doesn't feel very good. Lynch folded his chest and glanced at Ross. At this time, Coulson walked up with a harmless smile and enthusiastically stretched out his hand to introduce himself. My name is Coulson from Homeland Strategic Defense. S-H-I-E-L-D, right? Lynch didn't reach out and looked at Coulson coldly. So do you have a plan for me? A peace? Fool. Or are you going to gather people to kill me? Your director still has a big hole card, right? Coulson was stunned by Lynch's series of words with a lot of information, or he was stunned by a certain stewed director who was secretly communicating with him. After half a sound, Lynch heard the order from Chief Braised Egg coming from Coulson's headset, comfort him and ask him what he wants. Lynch sneered, and before Coulson could speak, he quickly replied, "You guys made a mistake. It's not what I want, but you should think about what to do to satisfy me." Lynch rose into the air bit by bit, but the sound still reached Nick Fury's ears through the headset. "I'm so angry right now, I almost got killed by this guy. And you may regret why he didn't kill me, because you have no way to restrain me. Maybe you guys can try dropping a nuke on New York and see if that kills me. Also, you can try to contact that old friend, maybe she can kill me. Beyond that, any attempt would only irritate me. I can do anything in New York to appease my anger if I want to." As Lynch spoke, he rose to high altitude. "It's not enough to punish this guy, and I don't want you to interfere. Goodbye, I hope you have figured out what to do when we meet next time." After speaking, Lynch identified the direction, turned around and was about to fly to New York. After a pause, he went back and added, "I am more disgusted with older and male agents. I suggest that you send someone who can make my first impression better next time." Then Lynch quickly flew away without looking back. Watching Lynch go away, Coulson smiled wryly, and whispered into the headset, "What should we do now?" Director Brain in the SHIELD office frowned deeply. His desktop was full of related materials of Lynch and Superman. "Let's deal with that first, and then come back to discuss the next step." After hanging up the communication, he pushed away the documents on the desktop irritably, then opened the drawer of the desk, and after a while of fiddling, he took out something. "It's an ancient communicator." He hesitated to stroke the small communicator, but after a long time, he put it back in its original place. Staring at the picture of Lynch on the desktop, he said to himself, "It's not the time." Coulson ended the communication and exchanged glances with Tony, looking at each other in dismay. How can he still fly? Coulson looked innocent. "Come on, how do I know?" He didn't know it before. Tony was also very depressed. But after thinking about it, it seems normal for Superman to fly. "Okay, I still have to clean up the mess here, do you want to go back?" "See you next time then." "I gotta get back to sleep, it's been a crazy day." In the laboratory, the man in white had just finished talking with Coulson, and all the research materials about Lynch had been taken away by SHIELD. But he didn't look very annoyed or sad. After Coulson left with his people, he immediately came to General Ross's office and knocked on his door. Then he told the expressionless Rose, "General, the samples were not taken away." General Ross nodded and asked, "How long will it take to make a serum?" The man in white was taken aback, and then he said awkwardly, "General, this thing is not the same, maybe. I'm not asking if you can do it." General Ross said angrily, "Don't forget that I haven't settled with you for letting him go." Ross pressed the fire. If it wasn't for this guy's usefulness, Ross really wanted to kill this fool with one shot. 1 week. I want to see results, or you can die. In a secret gang den, a beautiful woman with wavy blonde hair who was wearing black tights and blended in with the surrounding darkness suddenly felt a vibration from the communicator. She frowned beautifully and reached out to connect to the communication. "Director, what's the matter?" "I'm on a mission." "Abandon this mission and rush to New York immediately, you have a major mission." "Important?" She pursed her lips slightly, showing a slight smile. "How big it is?" "The safety and security of New York is so important." Hearing this, she replied seriously, "Understood, I'll be right back. The information has been sent to you, you can take a good look at it first, and think about how to complete this task." After a while, she sat in the receiving car and opened the mission information. After a quick glance, she, who has been trained for a long time, can't help but doubt life for a while. WTF? Superman. In New York's Chinatown, Lynch walked happily on the road, looking at everything familiar and unfamiliar around him. With his extraordinary hearing, these Cantonese that get into his ears from time to time make him quite friendly. But Chinatown, which incorporates American culture, also gave him a lot of strangeness and freshness. He had never been to New York, just flew all the way, happened to be here, so he decided to take a look here. Suddenly, he saw a Cantonese restaurant and remembered that he hadn't eaten Cantonese food for a long time. So he stopped wandering around and walked into the Cantonese restaurant. In Chinatown, New York, a young guy with flip-flops and a chicken coop on his head, swaying and walking rhythmically on the road. Suddenly, he stopped, stretched out his hand to touch his head with a puzzled expression, and touched something warm. When I took it down, it turned out to be a chicken bone. The boy suddenly became furious. What a deal! How can this be tolerated? When did Chinhaonan, little Chinhaonan in Chinatown, suffer such a loss. So he immediately crossed his hips, no matter which household upstairs threw it, took a deep breath, and yelled. "I'll pick your old mother, why don't you throw chicken bones with a shovel?" The building in front of him was a dilapidated old-fashioned building. According to his estimation, the people who lived there should be old, weak, sick and disabled people who couldn't afford to offend him. Therefore, he strikes hard and never relents. Seeing that no one answered, he became even more energetic, and a series of authentic and exquisite Cantonese spewed out from his mouth. Just as he was cursing heartily, as if he had found the sense of accomplishment today, he suddenly felt a sharp pain in his left foot. He squatted down with an "ah," covered his feet and took a closer look. It turned out to be another bone. When he was in a daze, his right foot suddenly hurt. He looked at it in horror and found that it was still an ordinary bone. Pain temporarily suppressed his anger, and IQ regained the high ground. Suddenly, he remembered the weird rumors circulating nearby this week. The thief fell down strangely and broke his hands, and the fraudster hit the wall strangely and suffered a severe concussion. Could it be? He swallowed, and looked at the building with horror on his face. Gloomy. Terror. Definitely something unclean. The more he thought about it, the more frightened he became. Ignoring the severe pain in his feet, he ran away from this street. Lynch casually threw the bone in his hand into the trash can, picked up a glass of Coke next to the seat, and took a big gulp. What? Lying back on his recliner, Lynch had a happy expression on his face. Fantastic chicken. What could be more comfortable than eating fried chicken, drinking Coke, and sunbathing? Oh, by the way, I also taught the passers-by idlers and ignorant young people a lesson. It has been a week since Lynch came to Chinatown. After shopping around, eating, drinking and having fun, Lynch rented a roof to live in. For several days in a row, Lynch sunbathed during the day, ate and drank, exercised his muscles and bones at night, helped others for fun, and collected small activity funds from the bad guys. How about not? Does Superman not eat? Well, physiologically speaking, there is really no need. Kryptonians living under the yellow sun do not need to eat physiologically. However, Superman is needed, because he has always believed that he is an Earthling, and he needs to eat psychologically, so Superman needs to eat. The same goes for Lynch. Anyway, you don't have to worry about money, so why don't you eat with your stomach open? Lynch, who has a body of steel and doesn't have to be afraid of eating bad stomachs, has to sigh, American junk food is so delicious. Of course, Lynch didn't do nothing but cook. He does an in-depth look at the system and current capabilities. In terms of systems, he studied the acquisition of justice value and the exchange of templates. First, Lynch explored the issue of justice value acquisition. The system at that time was like this. Superman system. Current template, Superman 100% in childhood, Superman in youth 10%. Template redemption list, Youth Superman, Superman, Magic Superman, Gold Superman, Supreme Superboy, Silver Superman. Justice value, 49135. Lynch later discovered the reason for the soaring justice value in Chinatown. He was regarded as a hero by people. Although he revealed less information, it still allowed him to gain a lot of justice. This is because his heroic deeds are known and spread, and those infected by his deeds will provide a certain amount of justice. This value will not be particularly large, but the accumulation of small amounts makes Lynch suddenly have an extra, justice points. In addition, directly fighting evil can also gain justice. For example, Lynch obtained more than 1 justice points when he inquired about killing the Iron Overlord. To Lynch's surprise, he also gained justice for his riots at the military base. The explanation given by the system is that Lynch is a victim of persecution, so those soldiers are accomplices, and attacking them can of course gain justice. Lynch then tests how much justice can be wrought from a person. The result is that it's easy to get a point or two of justice from a person, but it's very difficult to get more justice. For example, Lynch saved an unlucky passerby who was almost killed by robbers, and obtained the highest justice value obtained from a person, which was only 7 points of justice. Moreover, obtaining justice value is mostly a one-shot deal, and it is difficult to collect wool repeatedly. For example, if you give $10 to a begging homeless man, he will give 2 points of justice. The next time Lynch gave another $10, he didn't give any justice. When Lynch gave him $100, he only gave 3 points of justice. This means that a person's justice value can only be higher and higher, and if it is low, justice value cannot be generated. And the amount of justice value that the entire Earth people can give can be easily calculated. Calculated by taking the middle point of 5 points, based on the global 70 billion, the maximum is more than 300 billion. But in fact, it is difficult to get so much justice. Because not all places are like New York, when a superhero appears, everyone in the city knows it. In many places, even if Thanos came to snap his fingers, they couldn't figure out what happened. So Lynch can get a lot of justice on Earth, but not enough. If it goes well, it can be exchanged for an invincible level template like Silver Superman, but if it doesn't go well, it can only be exchanged for an ordinary Superman template. As for the templates, only the Youth Superman and Superman templates can be redeemed in stages, and the others can only be redeemed at one time. At the same time, the template exchange price will be reduced according to the current template. For example, Lynch, who owns the Child Superman template and 5% of the Youth Superman template, the price displayed when exchanging the Superman template is the Superman template minus the price of the Child Superman and 5% Youth Superman templates. The explanation given by the system is that these three templates are basic templates, so they can be exchanged in stages, and the subsequent prices will be reduced accordingly. In addition to the system, Lynch is studying his own abilities. As the Superman of DC Zhonglian sealing combat power, his strength is of course undeniably powerful. Based on his own strength, Lynch guessed that the complete Great Chow should belong to the level of Ancient One, Odin, Hela, and Dormammu, that is, the existence of the Heavenly Father. You have to fight to know who is stronger or weaker. After all, the movie universe has not yet been linked. Saying who can beat who is as meaningless as discussing Guangdong versus Qin Xiong. But the designation of Superman can beat most of the heroes of the Avengers, and the only ones who can be compared are Captain Marvel, Scarlet Witch, Doctor Strange, and the awakened Thor. Judging from the performance of the movie, these people all have excellent performances, but who can't eat dumplings during the Chinese New Year? Captain America also picked up the Meow Meow hammer and gave Thanos a bewilderment. That's why Lynch felt that the movie shouldn't be taken too seriously. Well, Lynch, who has been in the sun for so many days, said that he is not afraid. The reason why the bosses didn't show up during this period is also because they gradually realized how powerful they are. Under the yellow sun, Lynch felt that he was getting stronger every minute. Strength, speed, endurance, 5 senses, brain. Lynch's unlimited is not false, but true. Unless SHIELD uses some killer weapon that Lynch doesn't know, in New York, basically there is nothing that can pose a threat to him with the technological level of the Earth. At this time, Lynch realized what Superman meant by living carefully in a certain work. Lynch often lamented that if it weren't for Superman's own metaphysical life force field, Lynch might destroy everything around him. At this time, there should be a BGM sounding. Invincible, how lonely. Dong dong dong. A knock on the door interrupted Lynch's sunbathing. He turned his head and saw a beautiful figure through the door. Lynch smiled and threw the coke away. After waiting for a long time, did you finally come to me? Who? Sir, your order has arrived. Come in, the door is unlocked. Okay. The door to the rooftop was pushed open, and behind the door was a seductive and sexy young beauty. She was dressed in a waiter's costume, with her iconic long chestnut red hair, a bumpy devil figure, and a delicate face with a seemingly ecstatic smile. With a charming smile, she walked towards Lynch with a bag of meals. Lynch's eyes lit up undisguisedly, and he looked at her curiously. It's better to meet people than to be famous, and it's better to meet people in real life than to be famous in movies. In front of her eyes, her skin was tender and moist, her two big eyes were hesitant to talk, her nose was high and three-dimensional, and her small face seemed to radiate light in Lynch's eyes. She pursed her lips reservedly, showing just the right shyness, and put the things in her hand on the small table next to Lynch. Sir, I wish you a pleasant meal. Lynch glanced away at the food delivered with his fiery eyes, and opened it with a little surprise. They are all home-cooked dishes, but they are not easy to find on the streets of the United States. Lynch hasn't had much authentic Chinese food for a week, and sometimes he complains. You guys are very attentive. I thought you guys forgot about me. Her expression didn't change, but Lynch could hear her heartbeat speeding up obviously. Pretend to be seen through. Lynch arranged the dishes one by one, and then read their names. Sliced chicken, braised pork with preserved vegetables, steamed sea bass, and blackbone chicken soup, right? She continued speaking in not-so-standard Chinese. You can speak Chinese? Lynch was really surprised. No, a little. He seemed surprised, and a little happy. There are quite a few. Lynch nodded. Natasha, seriously, you should play something else, you're a bit too pretty for a waitress. Thank you for the compliment. Natasha brushed her hair together, you seem to know a lot. I'm a better listener so we can be honest, what's your plan? Lynch casually picked up the chopsticks and tasted the good-looking braised pork, and asked casually. Well, the rotten meat is fragrant, fat but not greasy, delicious. Natasha sat down and said helplessly, what if I said there is no plan? As you said, we can't limit you, so let me talk to you and see how you can have a better time in New York. Lynch swallowed a big mouthful of meat, and after he chewed and swallowed it carefully, he curled his lips, squinted at Natasha and said, so your plan is a beauty trick? Turning his head and taking a sip of the soup, Lynch continued to complain, since you all find out that I know a lot, why do you still think I'm interested in you? Lynch stared at Natasha quietly. Natasha, I know your past and even saw your future. You have no secrets in my eyes. This is true, Lynch dared to pat his chest to assure. Lynch, who was once a fan of the widow's beauty and temperament, has a deep understanding of the history of the Black Widow, from movies to comics. Lynch knows what kind of dark past and tragic future Black Widow has. In the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Black Widow was born in 1984, and is only 23 or 4 years old now, which is 1 or 2 years older than Lynch. She was born in the notorious female agent base, Red House, in the former Soviet Union. After undergoing cruel and tragic training and selection, she was forced to execute an innocent person. After that, she worked for the Russian Federal Security Service, was targeted by SHIELD and sent Patton to assassinate her. Instead of killing her, Barton recommended her to join SHIELD. After that, there is a well-known story. In order to obtain the soul gem and save half of the creatures in the universe, she gave her life. She has no childhood, no kinship, no love, no offspring, even when she dies, she has no cemetery or flowers, a miserable woman who is always tormented by the blood stained by her hands. So, you don't like me? Natasha raised her eyebrows, how about changing someone you like? A Chinese girl? A cute one? He said he knew his future, it doesn't look like a lie, what do you mean? Do not. Lynch smiled and held out his hand. I like it very much. Nice to meet you. My name is Lynch. Natasha was taken aback for a moment, then smiled and held it. My name is Natasha Romanoff. The mission went well, so he has a good impression of me, even if he knows about my past. So soft, so hot. So we're friends now. Natasha kept her expression on, Lynch was still holding her hand. He is like a little boy who has never been in love. If you think it is, then it is. Lynch came back to his senses, stopped, and continued to cook. Natasha chuckled, and decided to take advantage of the atmosphere to test it out. You seem to be familiar with Huaxia. Lynch responded with waited for a while and said, I'm from Huaxia. Really? Natasha didn't expect Lynch to be so direct, and then said in a joking tone, we thought you were Superman. Lynch chuckled, shook his head and said, do you think I look like a Superman? According to your observations, am I more like a college student? Natasha could not help agreeing. After so many days of observation, the result of Lynch's psychological analysis is that he is an ordinary Huaxia college student. But your abilities. Natasha said, your abilities are the same as Superman's. Super strength, heat vision, flying, perspective, absorbing sunlight. Why does it have to be Superman? Lynch sighed, can't it be a cultivator who has practiced the light system? Natasha didn't quite understand the Chinese used in the latter sentence. What do you mean? Is it something from Chinese legends? Yes, why don't you think I'm a Chinese fairy? Lynch wiped his mouth. Fairy? Natasha was silent, lost in thought. Sorry, maybe a cultural difference. We didn't think about that, so, are you? No, just talking casually. Lynch laughed out loud, as if he had succeeded in a prank. Natasha gave Lynch a white look. Listening to the conversation between the two, Director Ludden was also stunned. The agents of SHIELD, who were busy inquiring about immortals, gongfu, practicers, and so on, all looked at him speechlessly for a moment. Director Braised Egg signaled them to continue their inquiries with his eyes, and then continued to listen. Please, can you give me some more useful information? Natasha looked pitiful, otherwise it won't be easy for me to go back. Okay. Lynch finished his meal and sat down across from her. Do you want to hear the truth or the lie? Of course it's true. Lynch had a solemn expression, cleared his throat seriously, and then said in a low and depressed voice. I am a traveler from a higher dimension. I know your past, present, and future. Natasha or the team behind digested Lynch's words. So what about fake ones? My real name is Hu Tutu, my father's name is Hu Ingjun, and my mother's name is Zhang Xiaoli. My family lives in room, building, Duando Garden. Lin Chi was stunned by Natasha's words in Mandarin with a Sichuan flavor. It's like saying rap. Come out to hang out, who hasn't hidden freestyle? I don't know if there are Hututu in this world. Who cares, he himself said it was a lie, they really have no choice but to believe it, right? Natasha kept a smile that didn't change, like a mask. Obviously, she didn't quite understand this passage. It is normal, which proves that her Chinese teacher is not a Sichuanese with a strong accent. But it doesn't matter if she understands it or not, some people can still understand it. The powerful SHIELD has arranged for a translator to quickly extract the information in the words. After some inquiries, of course nothing can be found. There is no Hututu in this world. Up to now, Natasha felt in her heart that things were a little beyond imagination. She is proficient in micro-expressions, and she can tell that Lynch, who is untrained and unable to conceal his inner thoughts, does not seem to be lying. Through Lynch's series of prophets, and his indescribable familiarity with Tony Stark, the director, and even himself, his statement seems to be confirmed. But this statement is too startling and too unacceptable. Compared with him admitting that he is a Superman, the existence of Superman in this world is even more terrifying. An all-knowing existence came to his own world. What is his purpose? Well, I don't quite understand what you're saying. Natasha expressed helplessness, so should I believe your truth? It's up to you. Lynch said indifferently. So your world is similar to ours? Natasha thought about it. Lynch lowered his head and thought for a while. Basically the same. Natasha pondered what Lynch said, and continued to ask. Then can you tell me how you got here? How do I know? Lynch said helplessly, an unknown accident brought me here suddenly. The day you met Tony Stark. Right. Lynch sighed, the bad first day almost killed me. It's all over, isn't it? Lynch didn't reply for a while, and stared at Natasha calmly for a while, then got up and returned to his reclining chair in a dispirited mood. Putting on the sunglasses, Lynch lay on it and stretched. It's not going to pass, Natasha, things leave their marks when they happen, don't they? Lynch was lying on his back, his face was covered by large sunglasses, and his expression was unclear. Let's be honest, I'm a lazy person. Too lazy to be a hero, too lazy to be a villain, too lazy to make friends, too lazy to make enemies, even too lazy to live a good life. In this world, I am just a passerby, and I am even more lazy to do anything. But when I listen to my heart and I want to do something, I give my all and leave no stone unturned. So you can pretend that I don't exist, so that everyone will not be troubled. Lynch turned his back to Natasha and waved his hand on the recliner, I won't see you off. Natasha quietly listened to Lynch's words, and got up to leave. One more thing, Tony asked us to pass on that he will hold a press conference tomorrow, are you going? Lynch tilted his head. Press conference, famous scene. Do you want to go? Lynch took a second to make up his mind. Where is the location? Natasha took out an invitation card and put it on the table. I put it on the table. Tomorrow at 9 o'clock. Okay. Lynch closed his eyes, but he didn't hear the sound of Natasha leaving for a long time. Is something wrong? Yes, but I'm hesitant to. If you hesitate, do it, and you will know whether you should do it or not. Then Lynch felt Natasha's heartbeat gradually calm down. Okay, I want to ask, was I freed when I died? Lin Chi heard this and thought carefully. Are you free? In her later life, Natasha had a family partner because she joined the Avengers, but she was still the poor person who was tortured and entangled in the past. Her body was modified, resulting in infertility, which became a possible reason for her infertility. Her Secret Service career made her hands stained with blood, and the most painful thing for her was the experience of executing innocent people for the first time. But Lynch felt that she should be relieved when she died. Although she is unmarried, childless, and loveless, her performance when she obtained the soul gem undoubtedly shows that Barton loves her the most. Although she had killed innocent people and killed countless times, her sacrifice was exchanged for the soul gem, saving half of the innocent creatures in the universe. Come to think of it, when she died, her heart should have been redeemed. So Lynch said quietly, the place where you died is extremely desolate and dead. No one can go there for 1 year. There are no graves, no epitaphs, no flowers, no singing. Natasha couldn't help laughing when she heard this, but her eyes dimmed. After a pause, Lynch changed his tone and said, But when you die, there will be someone who loves you the most by your side, and everyone on Earth will remember your sacrifice, and you will save innocent lives in half the universe. Lynch turned his head and said with certainty, I think, in this case, you should be considered redeemed. Natasha remained silent, with the most sincere and charming smile today on her face. Lynn, can I ask you something? She looked at Lynch with pleading. If what you say is true, please don't change it. After Natasha left, Lynch squinted his eyes and thought about the gains and losses of today's conversation. Lynch didn't want to hide his background, making up nonsense is not realistic. How can an ordinary person disguise himself in front of a group of top-secret agents in the world? Can't do it. It would be better to be open and honest, which would save Lynch from wasting brain cells. So what if they could guess something? What if you learned one day that your world is a story created by someone else and that you are just a fictional character in another world? Sadness, despair, pain, or find a way to escape, break free from the shackles. Thinking too much, of course, what to do? Think about your money, have you borrowed it and paid it back, do you have a house and a car, is there an object? Is it because the bricks in your hand are not hot, or are there fewer homework papers? Even knowing these things, what is the point to most people? Life itself is an existence that is more silent and tearful than these brain-burning and insignificant things. When you have time to worry about things, it is better to work harder for life. Furthermore, even if they knew these things, how could people in this world pose a threat to themselves? The bosses who can pose a threat to themselves are all bound by rules and regulations. Ancient One is only responsible for protecting the earth from the invasion of demon gods from other dimensions, and doesn't care about the struggle of human beings themselves. What they play is called defending the earth, not defending human beings. Odin, his lifespan is about to come to an end, and it is difficult to use his divine power easily. He is focused on finding a reliable new king for Asgard. His attitude towards humans is the same as that of the Ancient One. As long as you don't come to find fault outside the 9 realms, humans can play as they like. The other members of the Avengers are really not good enough in front of Superman. Then what are you worried about? Of course, you can say whatever you want. Basking in the sun, Lynch slowly fell asleep like this. Office of the Director of SHIELD, Natasha is giving a report to Nick Fury. So my advice is to keep in contact and avoid unnecessary friction. Nick Fury stared at his signature dead fish eyes, and asked expressionlessly, what if he is disguised like this? For example, with a special ability? What if some stupid guy pissed him off and made him want to destroy the world? Or something else changed his mind, what should we do? His tone was as cold as his eyes, and every sentence pointed to the worst situation. Are we holding a bomb and pretending it doesn't exist? Or are we just trying to protect the bomb and pray it never goes off? Natasha hugged her chest and looked at Fury, a little dissatisfied. Then do we have to detonate him in advance? Can we afford to live? At least for now. Fury checked Lynch's information, which recorded Lynch's ability data from his appearance to the present. While his ability has not been further enhanced. Fury, we should be defending against and monitoring hazards, not just dealing with them. Natasha frowned. That's what I mean, so we always have to be prepared to deal with him. What kind of preparation? As he said, you have a summoner, and you can invite an old friend who can kill him? Natasha said suspiciously, but look, even if you really have such a thing, he knows it well, so why do we think it will be useful? Fury's complexion finally changed subtly. He shook his head and told Natasha firmly, I won't use that unless the earth is really going to end. The atmosphere gradually became stiff, and the two fell into an awkward silence. With a face that others owed him a lot of money, Nick Fury said compromised after a long time, if you believe that he will not pose a threat, then give him to you. Then he said in an uncertain tone, can you tell me what Lin said about Galway? Natasha pursed her lips and silently responded to him with an expression of, do you think I understand? Okay, looks like we'll have to find someone smart to explain. Fury's words sounded like a sigh of relief. Is what you said true? Is this what Lin said? In the image of the video call, Tony was rarely serious, confirming with Natasha with a drooping face. Natasha and Fury looked at each other and nodded affirmatively. Okay, it's a bit of a surprise. Tony blinked, silently digesting the sudden information. So, you understand? Fury asked skeptically. Please, Mr. Director. Tony poked his neck and boasted, otherwise, why did you find me? Don't S.H.I.E.L.D. have experts in this field? Tony, I'm sorry, we only thought of you because of confidentiality. Natasha explained with a smile. Okay, I can understand, after all, we just met. Seeing that Tony might not know where Ken was going, Natasha coughed and interrupted, then can you explain it to us? Tony's wise eyes swept over the two of them, then shook his head. You can think of Lin as a... Tony tilted his head and thought for a moment, an audience who entered the theater. He may be very familiar with certain things and certain people, but there is no doubt that he does not know everything. What? The audience who entered the theater? Fury had a little difficulty understanding Tony's metaphor. Can you be more straightforward? Tony didn't speak, but already politely expressed his refusal. Fury didn't say anything, just looked at Tony persistently. Okay, it's what you asked for. Tony was defeated and walked out of the range of the video. After a while, he returned to the front of the video with a book in his hand. He aimed the things in his hands at the camera so that the two could see clearly. It's a comic about Superman. What would happen if one day you accidentally went to the world of Superman? Under Tony's meaningful eyes, the two finally understood. You mean? Our world is a fictional work of Lin's world. The two people who reacted couldn't accept it. From a certain point of view, maybe yes. Tony nodded, but for us, this is real, our world. You mean? Yes, it doesn't matter whether we know it or not, believe it or not. Because there's no way to verify it, there's no way to get away with it, so let it be. If you have this time, why don't you go have a drink, if the beautiful Natasha is willing? Tony joked with a playful smile in a blink of an eye. Natasha recovered from the silence, smiled and said to Tony, of course, if you don't mind my nickname being Black Widow. Tony smiled mischievously. Okay, Mr. Director, Ms. Black Widow, then I will hang up first, I still have some things to deal with. Thank you for your help, Mr. Stark, and I hope you will keep this matter a secret. Fury said seriously. You know how amazing this thing is. I will, then, goodbye. After finishing speaking, Tony was about to hang up the communication, but then he looked up as if remembering something, and solemnly said to the two of them, don't try to get information about the future, because once you get information about the future will change, and it will probably get worse. Just like I said before, forget about it. Natasha's heart beat half a beat faster when she heard this, but she didn't respond. Fury nodded and replied, I know, I will treat it as if I didn't know about it. Tony nodded in satisfaction and turned off the call. Fury turned his head, his sharp eyes swept over Natasha's face. Did you already get some information? On the other side, Tony, who turned off the communication, did not go to other things, but sat down on the chair, raised his head and closed his eyes to think. My world turned out to be a cartoon in the eyes of others, cartoon, or some weird fairy tales, bizarre legends. Ridiculous. I also think of Lin as Superman. Am I the one who doesn't exist? So, how to face Lin next? The other party should know themselves well, right? Could it be that he knows all kinds of embarrassing things in life? Maybe, what if I am the protagonist in this funny work? You still have a great sense of humor, don't you? However, it shouldn't be. I still remember the surprise and joy in his eyes when we first met. Just like when I was a child, I saw a Superman. So, I should be a positive character, superhero. Maybe. Can someone like me be a hero? After thinking for a while, he suddenly got up. Jarvis, I have an idea, you can simulate it. Everyone has received an official account of what happened last night at Stark Industries. According to unconfirmed reports, a prototype robot malfunctioned, causing serious damage to the Ark's reactor. Fortunately, one of Tony Stark's personal bodyguards used Stark's top-secret technology to defuse the danger. On the screen behind him, Rhodes was making an official statement at the media public press conference. Iron Man. Tony was chatting with Potts, holding a newspaper headlined, Who is Iron Man? It's a bit of a name. He's got a formidable ring, though it's not accurate, it's actually made of gold and titanium, but who knows what people will think of it. Potts tore off the band-aid on the bridge of Tony's nose, preparing his appearance for his appearance later. Coulson came over, handed over a few small pieces of paper, and said, Alibi. Okay. Tony put down the newspaper and checked his official instructions. You were on a yacht at the time. Coulson introduced. Okay. Tony replied. The tax office certifies that you were anchored overnight at the port of Avalon with the testimony of 50 guests. Potts put concealer on Tony's bruised face. Tony looked down at the small piece of paper and said, Actually, I think it's better to say that it was just me and Pepper that night, and we were on the island. As he spoke, Tony glanced at her, but Pepper ignored her, finished her work, turned and walked away. We can't fake it. Coulson gently refused. Okay. Just keep reading. No mention of Obadiah. Tony glanced quickly at the few pieces of paper in his hand, then looked at Coulson questioningly. You didn't mention Lin either. No need. Coulson said. We dealt with it. Obadiah went on vacation, you know, the safety of small aircraft, it's really bad. But how to explain the fabricated bodyguard? Tony frowned. He is me, I mean how to explain this weak link. It's not the first time I've done something like this. As long as you follow the official statement, everything will be fine. Coulson said calmly. Tony had to accept it for a while, but... What about Lin? More people know him than Iron Man. Everyone knows that they fought side by side and left at the end. Tony looked like he wanted Coulson to give him a positive answer. Coulson immediately turned his backhand and said with innocent, pitiful persecuted eyes, you don't need to answer these questions, you just need to make a statement about Iron Man's question. So you're not ready for how to deal with Lin, are you? No. Coulson said, I don't know, I'm not responsible for this matter now. After speaking, he was afraid that Tony would continue to pester him, so he turned around and ran away. You only have 90 seconds. Pepper sent Coulson to the door of the room. Agent Coulson, I want to express my deep gratitude for all this help you have provided. Pepper solemnly thanked, it is my responsibility. Coulson responded with a smile, we will cooperate in the future. Your strategic law enforcement and quartermaster. Pepper frowned slightly, recalling the long and stinky full name of SHIELD for short. Coulson smiled, then turned and left. Okay. Looking at Coulson's back, Pepper turned his head and said to Tony in a relaxed tone, it's your turn to come on stage. Tony continued to spit, you know what, it seems that it is not difficult to fake, although I don't believe I am Iron Man. Pepper was holding the suit, Tony put the piece of paper in his mouth and held it in his mouth, and asked Pepper to help him put it on. Of course you're not Iron Man. No, I am. With a piece of paper in his mouth, Tony retorted vaguely. You are not. Okay, as you please. Tony relented. Then you know, if I am Iron Man, and I have a girlfriend like you who knows my details, then she must be worried that I will die sooner or later, but she will also be proud of me, and she will also be very conflicted, because then she will fall in love with me even more. Tony turned around and faced Pepper. He didn't know at this time that this prophetic words would become a prophecy many years later. But maybe he has a superior IQ and is extraordinary, he was already prepared for this when he made today's decision. He is such a person. Sundra, venomous, talkative, difficult to get close to, and a bit small-minded, but these small shortcomings make him more full and vivid, highlighting his wisdom and responsibility beyond ordinary people. Oh, it seems that I came at the wrong time. At this time, a voice of apology came from the corridor. The two turned their heads to look. Lin. Are you really here? Tony said unexpectedly with joy. Then he motioned Pepper with his eyes to leave the two of them alone. How are you doing recently? Of course. Lynch smiled. Next, Mr. Stark has prepared a statement, but he will not answer any questions, thank you. Rhodes spoke loudly, and the reporters sitting below all pointed the equipment in their hands at Tony Stark for a while to shoot. Tony stood still on the speech, glanced at the various reporters below, and said casually, well, I haven't shown up for a while. He looked down at the manuscript, I'll just read it according to the manuscript. There has been speculation that I was personally involved in the incident that happened on the expressway and on the roof. Halfway through the conversation, a young and beautiful female reporter sitting in the first row interrupted him politely and raised her hand. You really think that we will easily believe that it is a bodyguard, wearing armor just right, but in fact you usually. I know what you mean. Tony also interrupted with a smirk on his face. It's okay to question the official statement, but under no circumstances should you speculate and call me a superhero for no reason. The female reporter smiled smugly, as if she caught Tony's language loophole. I didn't say you were a superhero. No. Tony murmured, that's good, it would be ridiculous, too outrageous. Tony explained to himself, I'm not a hero. Obviously, I have too many character flaws, I have done too many wrong things, and the influence is very bad. Seeing that Tony was off topic, Rhodes leaned his head over and whispered, just follow the script. Okay, I know. Tony picked up the manuscript again, actually. He held up the manuscript, but the next speech choked in his throat. He looked away and looked at everyone in the venue quietly. Reporter, security, Rod, Pepper and Lynch. Come, a famous scene is about to be born. Standing in an inconspicuous corner, Lin felt a little excited. Despite his superhuman strength, he doesn't consider himself a hero. But the one in front of him is a real superhero who is immortal and stands shoulder to shoulder with the gods. Today marks the first page of his well-known legendary chapter. How could Lynch not be excited by such a famous scene? But after a while, Lynch keenly discovered that something seemed wrong with the script. Why is Tony staring at me all the time? Say your lines quickly, hello. Tony stared at Lynch for a full 10 seconds, causing many people present to look at Lynch frequently. Can I be a good superhero? He recalled the last conversation between the two just now. Of course, you are the best one. That being the case. Tony made a decision in his heart, put down the manuscript with a face of relief, and uttered that classic line. I am Iron Man. The whole place is boiling. Wait a minute, I have some big news. He said, and the scene became much quieter. I also have a superhero friend. I have a superhero friend, as I'm sure you all know, that's the guy I showed up with that day, some of you call him Wonder Boy. When Tony talked about this, he beamed with enthusiasm. Actually, he's a lot like Superman. He's powerful, he can fly, he has 2 eyes that shoot light. Superman. Are you kidding, Mr. Stark? But the current information can only show that he is very strong and fast. Journalists are always impatient to hear people finish their speeches. I'm not kidding, he has almost exactly the same abilities as Superman, I can vouch for it with my personality. Tony patted his chest and said, and then continued to expose Lynch. Of course he doesn't like being called Superman, probably because of his young age, and Superman is a bit older. Many reporters laughed in unison. So, I thought maybe we could call him. Tony pronounces a name as ritually as someone pronounces Iron Man. Superboy. Mr. Stark, where is this Superboy from? It looks like an Asian from the video. Where did the superhero go after that? How old is he? Does he have a girlfriend? The reporters at the scene rushed to ask Tony questions. He was so eloquent that he answered several questions, and then the questions became more and more biased. Okay, I can't answer many questions for him, but... Tony drew out his tone, and then glanced at Lynch. Lynch lowered his head at this moment, panicked. Tony's flamboyant manipulation made him wish he could jump out of the window and fly away now. Well, you big shit Tony, I'm here to cheer on your hero debut, but you're planning to let me perform? I take you as an idol, help you fight the Iron Bully, take you home, and even help you do ideological work just now, cheer you up, and you repay me like this? That's it? Just be wary of me when we first met, but now you want to drag me to debut as a superhero? Hateful. One day I will give you a crooked head. Lin Xiao was full of hatred in her heart, while paying attention to Tony's movements from the corner of her eye, she was silently preparing to escape. Don't look over here. You still look at me. Lynch met Tony's gaze with a murderous expression. Actually he's here today. Tony is very good at mobilizing emotions. As soon as this remark came out, the reporters talked like a frying pan, looked left and right, and continued to ask Tony where he was. And Lynch had already dawdled to a position close to the door. Don't say it, don't. Tony did not say it, but just smiled arrogantly and said, I won't point it out to you, otherwise he might blame me, he doesn't like people knowing him. Of course, as he said this, Tony's eyes seemed to indicate Lynch's direction. The professionalism of New York journalists is not fake, and clever journalists have followed the guidelines and came to Lynch. Hey, are you Superboy? Can I interview you? Here he is. I found him. The door is blocked. Lin Chi looked bewildered, completely at a loss, and was pushed all the way from the door to the podium by a group of journalist friends who were as excited as grabbing a 500 million lottery ticket. If it was a group of villains like this, Lynch must have struck hard long ago. But how could he deal with this group of frenzied and excited reporters? This is an experience he has never experienced before. Ever since he was a child, he had never faced so many and such fanatical people. The speech he has experienced the most is when he was running for the student union cadre in college. But although there were a lot of people at that meeting, there was no such experience of being surrounded and watched like being treated as a treasure. Although these gazes are not too pure, there are worship, curiosity, greed, and doubts. But it was enough to make Lynch overwhelmed. Standing on the stage, facing the reporters who kept asking questions, Lynch was so nervous that he even swallowed his saliva a little cautiously. At this moment, he especially wanted to shoot the system directly. I have a showdown. I can't do this. Let me go please, you see, I am still a child. Please let me go crime fighting, this is a better occasion for Tony. A few minutes passed in Lynch's silence, and the reporters who could not get a response from the audience gradually quieted down. Say something. Tony's gloating voice came from the side. Lynch gave him a terrifying death stare. Tony shut up immediately. After all, this guy can really stare at people. Raising his head and straightening his chest, Lynch spoke slowly. I don't actually know what to say. After speaking, Lynch unexpectedly calmed down. What Tony said is true. I have similar abilities to Superman, but I am not like him. I can't guarantee what I can do for this city in this world, because I'm not ready yet, so I don't want to be discovered by everyone, and I don't want to hear someone call me Superman. Maybe one day I'll put on a Superman suit and save the world, but not now. Okay, now I want to be alone for a while, goodbye. Lynch spoke more and more smoothly, so he finished speaking in one breath, and ran out of the venue quickly before no one could react. When the reporters chased him out, they could only raise their cameras and take a few pictures of Lynch flying away. Oh my god, can he really fly? Superman. A reporter flipped through the photos he took and wondered. Superman. Didn't you hear Stark say he was called Superboy? Don't get the headlines wrong tomorrow. A rather old reporter reminded. Why are you so afraid? In the air, Lynch asked himself silently. Why are you so afraid of being regarded as superhuman? What about being treated as a superhero? Is it just because you hate Superman's weakness and compromise? Still is. At the same time, you also worship and look forward to the greatness and nobility of Superman? That was the quality Lynch thought he would never be able to achieve. Lynch has always thought of himself as an ordinary person. There is a sense of justice, but not very strong. There is a dark side, but it doesn't appear much. Sometimes it is more self-centered, but most of the time it avoids hurting others. This is Lynch. He yearns for the divinity in Superman, but hates Superman's compromise. He is the existence between Superman and villain. So he can't accept this title, he can't bear the meaning behind this name. He can't do what Superman is supposed to do. Tony dealt with all the troubles caused by self-destructing his identity as Iron Man in a refreshed manner. Although he was very busy, he was very happy because he knew that someone must not be as comfortable as he was. Sometimes happiness is built on the pain of others. While humming a cheerful tune, Tony suddenly heard a rhythmic knocking sound behind him. Dang dang. He turned his head, and the joy on his face gradually disappeared. Outside his mansion, Lynch was suspended in the air with a gloomy face, knocking on the floor-to-ceiling windows of his house. It was like a death knell for him. Pepper, is my plane ready to take off? Tony. We need to talk. Next time, Lynn, I'm really in a hurry. In a certain university, a young professor in blue has just finished his class. Walk to the downstairs of the teaching building. Excuse me, Dr. Stern. He heard the voice and looked up. A lady came up quickly. My name is Elizabeth Ross. He thought of the scholar. Dr. Ross? Someone wants to see you. Okay. A man in a hat came over and looked up at him. Mr. Lon, the man asked. Stern looked at the man in surprise. Mr. Green. I've been wondering if you really exist, and if so, what would you look like? It's a surprise to me that someone with so much power should be as inconspicuous as you. Dr. Stern's residence, he is happily talking about his curiosity about Mr. Green, Dr. Banner. It's a pity that neither of them was very interested in this experience, so he changed the subject and got to the point. It's not easy. Even if everything goes well, if you guide you to transform and inject the correct dose, will you be healed forever, or will you be temporarily suppressed? As he said that, Stern flipped a coin, which meant that the treatment result was like flipping a coin, and he couldn't be sure until he saw the result. If a slightly higher dose is injected, there will be high component toxicity. Could kill him. Banner's girlfriend, or ex-girlfriend, Ms. Ross chimed in. Yes, I'm sure. Stern nodded. But it could also be the complete opposite. If the dose is too low to overwhelm me, you're in danger, Banner said. Stern laughed and explained as if he had guessed Banner's concerns. I have always been a curious baby, and I have never encountered a matter whether to do it or not. The meaning is very clear. I have been dying since I was a child, and I am not afraid at all. So the three reached an agreement and came to Stern's laboratory together. Stern inserted the potion into the machine, adjusted it, and let Banner lie down on a recliner. Then he fixed Banner's whole body on the recliner to ensure that Banner could inject the medicine after he transformed into Hulk. This will be a very novel feeling. Stern prepared the instrument and said to Banner, we started. The blood separator will mix the antidote with your blood, but you have to be fully transformed for the antidote to work. The blood in Banner's body is continuously drawn out, and then mixed with antidote and returned to the body after transformation. Relax. Rose said, stroking Banner gently. Okay, it's done. Then, they are about to move on to the most dangerous part. Wake up the Hulk and inject the antidote. Stunner in hand, Stern took a deep breath and asked, are you ready? Banner glanced at Rose and nodded. So Stern took the electric shock device and gave Banner a shock on both sides of his head. Woo! Banner immediately closed his eyes and whimpered in pain, his body struggling up and down crazily. Suddenly, he straightened up, his eyes opened wide, and a touch of green emerged. Hulk, coming out. Banner's body swelled up like an inflated balloon, and green blood vessels covered his naked body like earthworms. He spat out the contents of his mouth fiercely, a terrifying sound sounded, and his whole body continued to swell. As he raised his head and roared, his entire body had grown in size, like a legendary giant. Seeing this, Stern, who kept exclaiming, hurriedly wanted to turn off the instrument. Wait, it's not over yet. Rose cried out eagerly, and Gordon had to give up and continue to watch Banner become alive in horror. Moments later, Banner has fully transformed into the Hulk. It roared like a beast, and began to break free from the shackles on its body. Now. Hurry up. Rose reminded loudly. Hurry up and inject the potion. Unexpectedly, Stern was in a daze at this time, and was knocked down by the crazy Hulk. The crazy Hulk is so powerful that he is about to break free. Once it succeeds, the consequences will be disastrous. Rose looked at the terrifying beast, and even summoned the courage to turn over and sit on it. Bruce, look at me. She comforted Hulk while urging Stern, hurry up and inject the antidote. Hurry up. Hulk struggled, but didn't push her away. After tossing for a long time, Stern finally succeeded in injecting Hulk with the antidote. As soon as the antidote entered Hulk's body, it felt like it had been hit by a huge blow. With a low growl, it slowly lay down. Its body is slowly shrinking, and the green color is also fading rapidly. Moments later, the Hulk transformed into Banner. That's the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. Stern was drooling, his expression exaggeratedly expressing his shock. Don't get so excited. Ross said grimly, because it wasn't a fun experience, we gotta talk about what just happened. No problem, the gamma pulses come from the amygdala of the brain, I guess it's Dr. Banner's nucleic acid strands. We may have neutralized these cells, or just suppressed this transformation, I don't know, maybe the latter, my experimental specimens have never survived. Wait, what did you say? Banner interrupted him, experimental specimen? What experimental specimen? Follow me. Stern took the two to a laboratory. The lab is filled with clear glass cabinets filled with bags of blood. These are all your blood. You didn't send me much, so I concentrated it and made more. As long as we continue to research, there are infinite possibilities and infinite potential. This gamma technology has countless uses. We can discover hundreds of antidotes and make human beings completely immune to various diseases. Banner looked at Stern, who was in a frenzy, and felt cold in his heart. Of course he knows how much potential there is in gamma technology, and it can be said that no one understands this kind of thing better than him. However, the deeper the research, the heavier the damage. Gamma technology is a double-edged sword, and humans have not yet mastered the method of using it. Continue to research, it is likely to lead to a more terrible disaster than the Hulk. He said solemnly to Stern, no, we have to destroy it. What? Why? Stern was puzzled. Tonight we have to destroy all of this, everything here. What? Stern suspected that he had heard wrong. We could get a Nobel for this. You don't understand the power of this thing. It's too dangerous to control. This is the flame of Prometheus. The three quarreled. They just want to use it as a weapon. If the government takes it, it's over. You don't know the power of this thing. I hate the government too, but you're too nervous. Stern didn't understand why Banner was so cautious. Boom. Suddenly, a gunshot ends the quarrel. Banner fell to the ground in pain, and Ross hurried forward to support him. After a closer look, luckily it was just a sedative. Banner fell to the ground slowly, no matter how much Rose slapped his cheek or called his name, it was useless. Subsequently, a group of military soldiers took control of the three and took Banner and Ross away. Stern was taken aside by a female officer with a dazed look on his face for questioning. He never thought that Banner's words were so effective that people from the government would come as soon as they said it. Outside Stern's house, General Ross, who planned the arrest operation, bowed his head to the bound Banner and said coldly, "If you dare to destroy the Hulk, you will be imprisoned for the rest of your life." Banner ignored him blankly. General Ross raised his head and walked towards Banner's girlfriend, Ms. Betty Ross, who was walking ahead. He put his arms around Betty and called out, "Betty," softly. But Betty just looked at him with hatred, and said with hatred, "I will never forgive you for doing this to him." "He's a fugitive," General Ross argued. "You made him a fugitive." Betty's voice rose, becoming more angry, "To cover up your failure and protect yourself. I don't want to be your daughter." After Betty finished speaking, she shook her head and left to chase Banner. General Ross had a gloomy face, but he was very excited in his heart. Banner has been successfully captured, so will it be far from killing Lynch? It's just that he didn't realize that one of his good subordinates, Bronsky, had quietly disappeared. Back in time a few days ago. "General, the serum has been completed, but due to the scarcity of materials, only one copy was made." In General Ross's office, his chief researcher held a small bag in both hands and handed it to General Ross. "However, I'm not sure about its safety and effectiveness," the man in white said hesitantly. "Okay, you don't have to worry about this." General Ross opened the bag, took out the serum and looked at it carefully. The serum is dark red in color, which is beautiful like onyx. Compared with its appearance, the possible power contained in it is more fascinating. Then should we use it on Bronsky? It may kill him, but in terms of success rate, he should be the most suitable candidate. No. General Ross shook his head, "We have more suitable candidates." After experiencing Bronsky's 2 failures, Rose has been very disappointed in him. He thought of the big green guy, the Hulk. If it is used for him, it must be able to defeat Lynch, right? Defeat Lynch by injecting the Hulk with the serum, so that you can get more serum materials. Capture the Hulk, inject the serum, and kill Lynch. In this way, the ultimate soldier plan of his dreams will be completely successful. As for himself, he will also thoroughly wash away the humiliation brought to him by the 2 of them. There was fanaticism in General Ross' eyes. "Bruce Banner, where the hell are you?" "Lynch, this time you must die with pain and regret." Toilet. Bronsky, topless, stares at himself in the mirror. Thin, gloomy, and hideous. Like a monster. Not long ago, Bronsky once again applied to General Ross for the use of that precious serum. However, he was rejected again. Although General Ross kept saying that he was thinking about his own safety, his indifference and disappointment showed everything without any concealment. "General Ross doesn't believe me anymore," Bronsky thought bitterly. "Damn Ross. He actually thinks I'm not qualified to use the serum. Damn Hulk and Lynch. Damn everything." Gradually, loathing twisted Bronsky's mind. He hated Hulk and Lynch, hated that they beat him again and again, crushing himself mercilessly like an ant. He hated his comrades in arms and Rose around him. They didn't believe in him, they didn't help him, and now they often looked at him like a monster. He loathes himself, hates his own weakness and powerlessness, and is unable to resist in front of a strong enemy, allowing his self-esteem to be trampled and torn to pieces time and time again. Bronsky clenched his fists, his thin body was bent, and a row of terrifying steel spines were clearly visible on his back. Monster. What if you can gain power, the power to destroy everything, and turn into a monster? Enemies, comrades in arms, Ross. If possible, I would destroy all of these. Drip, drip. The communicator rang, Bronsky took it out and looked, and squeezed out a smile on his gloomy face. That was the call to action message. They found Hulk, at a PhD who studies gamma technology. During the arrest operation, Bronsky, who came to Dr. Stern's residence, suddenly thought, if this scientist can cure Banner and destroy Hulk, can he also create Hulk? If only I could gain that power. For a moment, the desire for power overwhelmed Bronsky's mind. He violated the order and rushed directly into the room where the 3 of Banner were. Seeing Banner, he couldn't restrain the anger in his heart at all, rushed forward, pushed Ross away, grabbed Banner and roared fiercely, turning Banner into Hulk. But Banner was sedated and couldn't transform into Hulk at all. So he could only angrily beat Banner unconscious, and his comrades came in and took Banner. Then. Boom! The shot rang out, and Bronsky stood up from behind his fallen comrade. "Why are you always hitting people?" Stern asked frantically. Bronsky impatiently put the gun to his head. "What did I do to annoy you?" Stern was still chattering nonchalantly. "It's not what you do, it's what you do," Bronsky said coldly, "I want what you distilled from Banner." Stern looked at Bronsky and gradually discovered something. "Looks like you've been injected with something." I want more, and you saw him turn into the Hulk too. Yes, it's perfect, like a god. Stern had an obsessive admiration on his face. I want to be like that too. I want you to make me like that. I don't know what's in your body, it might become. Stern hesitated, it's a big disaster. Bronski's anger rose from his heart, and he grabbed Stern and lifted it above his head. I didn't say I didn't agree. Stern was held up in the air, breathing hard, and said with difficulty, I just need your consent, and you agreed. Stern compromised. A few minutes later, Stern's lab. Bronski was lying on the chair, and Stern inserted a can of Mr. Green 14. 56% potency, blood into the device and started it. Blood entered Bronski's body as the apparatus ran. A touch of green quickly emerged from Bronski's body, and then became brighter and brighter. The green light shone in the room, and the instruments were affected and malfunctioned one after another. No matter how Stern operated, he couldn't control it. Bronski roared, Gamma's power mixed with the negative emotions in his heart caused his body to expand rapidly, and hideous flesh thorns grew out of his body. A moment later, a gray-green monster with a row of huge thorns on its back, taller and stronger than Hulk, appeared. Pushing Stern to the ground casually, it let out a rough and low laugh. Its name is Hatred, it is more powerful and perfect than Hulk, and it hates all the horrible existences in the world. It is not as low intelligent and brainless as the Hulk, but perfectly possesses human intelligence. Because of this, its heart is full of hatred for everything just like its name. It hates the Hulk, it hates Banner, it hates Ross. Hate everything that brings it pain and anger. This time, with such power, it vows to destroy everything it hates. Soon, the Abomination rushed out of the laboratory, and no one could stop it. It is full of anger and kills its former comrades in arms. Its huge strength makes him throw the car like a toy. Its huge and tough body smashes everything that blocks it on its way. Soon, the bustling streets of Brooklyn, New York, became a living hell. Blood is spreading, flames are burning, and people are fleeing here screaming. 2 soldiers drove a car and rushed to the scene against the flow of people. They seized the opportunity and fired a shot at it with a bazooka. But what frightened the 2 of them was that Abomination quickly turned around, grabbed the cannonball casually, and slapped it fiercely on the head. There was an explosion, but the Abomination was unscathed. It roared, ran a few steps in front of the 2 soldiers, raised the car and threw it at the 2 soldiers. Give me a stronger opponent.